So although I wish I were here with better news, the fact is that you and I are sitting here today because this will be your last week of employment. This is not an assessment of your productivity. You gotta try not to take this personally. So although I wish I
Try
were here
not to
with...
take that personally. Oh boy, welcome back. Welcome back, ladies and gents. Holy cow, let's get this back on over here. And why don't we pull the chat in? Come on over. Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to the live stream portion of this week. It's been another awesome week. It's been another crazy, intense what's been going on week all over the place. Wow, something really incredible happened today. I was all this networking, it's amazing. It really is amazing to me. The fact that this channel's been blowing up. I've been invited out to speak at certain places and getting to know other people, and through that, I get to meet these other people. I got to speak to one of the people that I've admired the most for the longest time, Dr. Walter Block. He insisted that I call him Walter. Great. So I had an opportunity last minute, just little, hey, okay, we can do this. Did that today. So that'll be out on Monday. I can't wait to. You guys have heard so much stuff about Dr. Walter Block over the years that you've been listening and watching. So it'll be really, really cool to give you guys a really cool introduction to, well, not just economics, but the Austrian school of economics and why it's. I don't know. In my estimate is a better school of thought. Who knew that there was different schools of thought in that? But this is really cool. I'm really excited. I'm happy to be sharing this stuff with you. So I hope you guys enjoy that. But tonight, of course, we're gonna be having an amazing stream tonight. First hour, I'm gonna be chatting with you guys, and then I've got special guests later this evening, and that's of course, you may know them from Twitter. That's Bratney, and we also have Yukon Strong joining tonight. So I'm really, really looking forward to this. Economics, ew. That's too funny. I know, I'm a dork. I don't know what it is. It was way back in the day. Actually, I started hearing these arguments about sound money, about not having the boom bust cycle, all of this stuff. Like, who's this guy talking from America? This guy in the Congress, this Ron Paul guy who's running for president all those years ago. What was he on about? Well, that sent me down this massive rabbit hole. And I just read and read and read and read and read and read and listened to tons and tons and tons of lectures. I'm talking thousands of hours of lectures, and it's all really, I don't know. I guess I'm a dork. I'm a total dork, and I dork out on this stuff. So that's what I do. Anyway, wobbly pops. It's Friday night. Everybody, enjoy. I hope everybody over there on the other side of the screen is enjoying a wobbly pop of your own, or whatever kind of pop that you like to drink. What is this? It's the economy, sweetheart. Yeah, that's right. Do it. Non-woke economics rock. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I loved. That's what I absolutely love about the Austrian school of economics. It's very non-woke. It's absolutely non-woke. It's the idea of calling a spade, and sometimes it's not a message that people want to hear. In fact, I think it's the John Maynard Keynes school, the ones the politicians like. They like the idea. Well, you can spend all the money you want. That'll help the economy. That's the kind of economics that we want to avoid largely. Yeah, I'm late. Hey, welcome, welcome. Even though you're late, I think I was late by at least a few minutes. It's not Friday if I'm not late. But welcome to the stream. The eyes of the mighty Caesar are upon you. Clyde, what do you drink? I drink different stuff all the time. Tonight, what am I drinking? I don't even know if I'm allowed to show this on YouTube. I'm drinking neutrals tonight, keeping them calories low. Keeping them calories low. I like the what do you call it? The pamplemousse. That's the flavor. That's the flavor. The good old grapefruit. It's not a grape. It is a fruit, and it's delicious. It's citrus. Evening, Clyde and folks. Evening. Just don't blame the boomers. Okay, so I don't lay blame on boomers. And I know I've given the boomers a hard time over the years and over the months and weeks and different videos that I've made. I give the boomers a hard time. Sure, I give the boomers a hard time, but I'm not blaming anybody. And I really, we went over this when Marty and I were talking. I sincerely believe this. Is Clyde a fatty? No, not a fatty. No, not a fatty. I mean, I got the old dad gut going on. I should probably get on that, but yeah, I'm not a fatty by any means. Where was I going with that? Where was I going? Holy cow! I just lost my train of thought from that one. Oh yeah, blaming the boomers. So I really wanted to emphasize this point, especially. Well, we did this when Marty and I were talking in the last Marty episode. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. We're talking about how the Trudeau regime is largely trying to do this. They're trying to blame it. Look at what Karl Marx wrote, and he gave a playbook of how to do this. Find somebody, single them out, a group, single them out, and blame them. Trudeau's done this over and over and over again through his entire political career. Find a group, single them out, blame them for everything. Find a group, single them out, blame them for everything. He just keeps cycling to new groups, and people fall for it. Hook, line, and sinker all the time. And right now he's shifting to boomers. He's shifting to the boomer generation. Oh, the boomers had it so good, and they got into get themselves into a situation. Should I just get into this right now? I should really get into this right now, because this is something that we've all been hearing about lately, and I don't even know how I'm going to preface this. I think what I should do is show this video first and foremost. So let me pop this up. What just happened there? Oopsie. Let's, oh. What happened to half my screen there? I don't know what's going on. Ah, no, where did that come from? What is this thing? Where did that come from? Where did you come from? That thing? Let me try to get rid of that. I don't even know what happened there. Oh, it's the chat. The chat went all blank and weird. How did that happen? What happened to you, chat? I'm going to have to bring the chat back. You'll have to give me a second for that. But this is what I wanted to show. I'm going to show this video here in the meantime before I bring the chat back. Share screen. Pop this on. Now, this is the Century Initiative. This is something that, yeah, oopsie daisy, indeed. It happens. It happens. Especially when you're live. There's no redos. You just do it all the time. Yeah, the boomers had it easy. They only had to Vietnam. If you were American, I don't think Canadians went to Vietnam. I believe that people went to they escaped to Canada that didn't want to go to Vietnam. But I mean, I'm not gonna drag that point too much. But so yeah, I'm not saying that the boomers had it easy. In some regards, they did. Some economic regards, they did. But anyway, let's get into this. Right now, there's an initiative to essentially bring in tons and tons of people, but then they're also going to change the economy. Let's get into this. And well, this is not gonna play out. So, let's just say that these guys, they pulled this, and they've had no there's they started off as a lobby group, and now they're just a charitable organization. They don't even need to lobby anymore because there's no opposition. They're getting their way. This is what's happening. Yes, we hit 41 million people now, which is just insane. We need two people to work at our franchises. Oh, chat's moving too fast now. I'm trying to pop these up. Okay, there we go. We're at 41.2 million now. It's crazy. It's crazy. And we don't have the housing. We don't have the stuff to take care of these people. The fancy video, they talk about all of these things that they're going to bring forward for everybody, but they didn't talk largely about, well, or the fact that they've only moved forward on one thing, and that's opening the door for immigration wildly. And this has created a housing bubble and a housing crisis like we've never, ever seen before in this country. It's absolutely ridiculous. I don't know how we would be able to sustain this. Now, getting back to some of the questions about boomers, I want to highlight one of the chats here. There it is. You act like boomers all had great jobs, investments, lots of money. There was still three classes: rich, middle class, and poor. Yes, and the middle class was much larger, proportionate wise to the population. That's absolutely it. Right now, there's, and this is no fault to the boomers. Believe me, I'm not blaming this on the boomers. I'm blaming this largely on our government and what they've been doing. 25% of the population in Canada is now below the poverty line. That was not the case during the boomer era. And so, yes, largely, boomers had the benefit of timing the market perfectly. I mean, I'm not cutting boomers up by saying that. It's just a fact. Like, people had the ability, if you were inclined to purchase a home, to do any of these things, it was well within a lot of people's reach. That's a fact. And again, I'm not acting as if like they had all the opportunities in the world, but they definitely had lots of opportunities, a lot of opportunities that aren't around anymore. And it's not because of the boomers, it's because of government. But this is the thing. This is what the government's trying to do right now. The government's trying to pit people against each other. Of course, it's the classic divide, conquer tactic that they have to, they would like to do in order to keep the eye off of what it is that they're doing. Boomers had the best ability in history, longest peacetime. They had it easy. That's, a lot of the sentiment. Exactly. It was easier for you to get ahead. Boomers had to work their asses off. If you worked for the government, maybe you had it easier. No one had money for daycare. Family trips were in the good old station wagon, maybe to another province. No, I do appreciate all of that. In fact, back in those days, if you wanted to work for the government, you did that. You did that in the knowledge of knowing that, well, you're going to take a pay cut. You're probably not going to make as much money as you would if you worked in the market, but there'd be way less risk because you wouldn't be able to get fired you wouldn't lose your job because of, turns in the economy if you worked for the government. And that was always the trade-off. Nowadays, it's a completely different story. If you work for the government, you'll never, what's this? Identity politics ruins everything. LOL, Viva Fry. I agree with that entirely. But yeah, nowadays, if you work for the government, you make more money than your private sector counterparts. There's obviously the job security still there, and we virtually cannot get fired. That's really what it is. Boomers did not have it all that easy. That's Trudeau's job to divide, and that's what he's doing now. This is what I'm talking about. And I want to get into this because, well, here's this idea of generation squeeze. and I called it what was it, Operation Boomer Squeeze, because like this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to get blood from a stone. They're trying to soak an entire generation, and this is what they do. How do I even preface this without just straight up getting into it? That's what happened. I stopped sharing the screen, and then it really corrupted the chat. Why does it do that? That's a really weird one. It's a really weird thing for it to do. Okay, well, let's fix that. In the meantime, let's share this. I'm working on new programs. I'm trying to figure this stuff out. I'm trying to make these live streams a little bit more interactive and better for everybody. So bear with me in the meantime. Grab yourself a wobbly pop. Excuse my, for lack of a better word, boomer technical savvy tonight. This is this is what we're working on. So this is the what was it, the meeting that they had with Generation Squeeze, and of course squeezing the life out of the boomer generation is what the plan is now. What they want to do is take your homes. They want to, because this is largely the asset that the boomer generation do have at this point. And the reason why the younger generations don't have this, don't largely have homes, is because of, well, policy, economic policy, whether it's from the Bank of Canada itself, it's from the government itself, too much debt, causing the Bank of Canada to print more money, which takes away the value of our currency, raises the prices of things in the as a consequence of that. So then, what do we have? We have rising prices in real estate. Thank you, Clyde, for all you do. Thank you, Breezer. I appreciate that. Here we go. I'm a boomer. I worked from the age of 6 on the farm. I don't think my parents would have made it without 6 kids to help work the farm. We didn't always have extra food. 3 meals was all, no extras. I was raised in a similar kind of circumstance, even though I was raised in the 80s. Big family, and there was no snacks. You didn't get all the snackies that you wanted. That wasn't the case. But let's hold on a sec here. I always gotta tip the hat to my fellow tradesman, Clyde, fellow licensed rancher from Ontario. Keep up the great work. Have fun not using torches daily. I'm still here for a while, so I was using the torch today. I had my Swedish nut lathe out too. I had to round a couple of them off, but yeah, it's I will be looking forward to that, moving down south, not having to deal with the rust. It will be fantastic. I'm curious to how that's actually going to play out. But anyway, back to this. I'm going to get the chat back, chat working again. This is really weird. How that happened, but I want to get into this first. Their little preamble at the beginning here, because it makes me laugh.
I'm delighted to welcome you all to our town hall today with the Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau, and we're gathering here today on the unceded territories of the Squamish, the Tsleil-Waututh, and the Musqueam people. Advancing reconciliation is really important at Generation Squeeze, and indeed in our focus on generational fairness, it's really central to the project of trying to implement in Canadian society the 7th generation principle. The wisdom and practice of governments for many Indigenous nations in Turtle Island to think about decisions today, not only for the present, but also what will it mean as far out as 7 generations from now. That's hard to do in Canadian politics when our electoral cycles are 4 to 5 years. And so
Turtle Island. I didn't know we lived on Turtle Island. Is that a thing? So obviously I make fun of these land acknowledgements quite a bit. Unceded territories, stuff like that. You all know I did a land acknowledgement once for the dinosaurs that came here before us. Don't know why this came about. This is a new thing. They really, really love pulling up these unceded territory things and whatever. Turtle Island. Like, can we simultaneously live in Canada and the fictional land of Turtle Island? Are we gonna live in, do we talk about Hades and Zeus and all this other stuff too? I digress. It's insane. It's insane. This is part of the daily rigmarole that people actually put themselves through. Anyway, let's get into this, because this one really unusual, really unusual for me.
So our efforts try and enshrine generational fairness more into the machinery of government as a way to try and bring that Indigenous principle into the structures of our governance for the benefit of all. We're here to talk about fairness for every generation. That's the title of Budget 2024. It's also the call to action that Generation Squeeze has been making for over a decade since our inception. And so we think this budget is absolutely historic. Never before has a government acknowledged that the middle class right now is being really distorted by the way that one's age interacts with the housing system, how it shapes our...
Okay, I gotta stop it right there. So the way your the way your age interacts with the housing situation. Well, how is your age interacting with any of this stuff? How can I do this where we can actually see the chat at the same time? So how is your age interacting with the housing market? Does your age change the price of your home? Does your age do any of this stuff? No, it just so happens that years and years ago, houses were a lot cheaper than they are today. So yeah, your age might make it so that you were alive before. If you're an older age, you might happen to have been alive at an earlier date, which would have put you in a time where you could have maybe timed that market a little bit differently. I love this. Generation Squeeze, huh? Sounds like a grifter from the 1930s. This is what I'm getting into. Now, I want you to pay attention to the verbiage that they use in this. This really freaks me out, because if you listen to I'm drawing a blank on her name. Her name's Young Mi Park, I believe. She's a defector from North Korea. When she talks about what was going on in North Korea, and she talks about the famine and the way they treated certain people, there were second-class citizens even in North Korea. Everybody's impoverished, but the people who are the worse off are people who are descendants from, can you guess it? Landowners. The crime of your ancestor was a landowner. This is the kind of rhetoric that you hear from Marxists. This is the kind of rhetoric that you hear from people who really want to push this. It's scary. It really is terrifying to listen to what they say here.
Our experience in the housing system, so that income now matters less than it did in the past, and secure housing and home equity matters so much more, privileging people like me who've been in the housing market for some decades, especially in this.
Well, if you're so hard up about it, give it up. Give it up. If you're privileged, you can always just hand it over. I mean, they're lobbying the government to tax the average people's homes as a generational fairness thing. Why don't you just hand it over? Just hand it on over. Carla, member for 10 months. Thank you for sticking with it for so long. I watched this from Northern Perspective. They said the question and answer portion wasn't made public. No, that's correct. They hid that one. They hid that one from the public. Wonder why? Honestly, wonder why. Wonder why that is. So yeah, well, let's just have a listen here.
This region in Metro Vancouver. As many of you took your seats today, you would have seen scrolling on what is all too tiny a screen, a range of thank yous from the many, many people in our alliance, the over 40,000 folks who are part of Gen Squeeze, and many sent thank you notes to the Government of Canada for making the promise to restore fairness for every generation. And I wanted to highlight what's happening with the federal budget is being noticed around the world. The UK with the Intergenerational Foundation, they have
I
described...
just want to pause this for a second, because here's the thing. The rhetoric is fairness for every generation. Fairness for every generation. Of course we want fairness. I mean, that's an obvious thing. That's something that everybody can agree is a good idea. Fairness for everybody. Why do we even have to call it generational fairness? Let's call it individual fairness. I'm huge on the principles of fairness for the individual. Now, what's fair though? Is fairness outcome? Is that what you're looking for? Are you looking for fairness in opportunity? Fairness in the eyes of the law? I'm always for fairness under the eyes of the law. I wouldn't want anybody in particular to get a better shake against, you know, prosecution or something like that than anybody else. I want everybody to have the same shake if they're charged with something, whether they're guilty of it or not, which is always needs to be deemed or determined by a court of law, a jury of your peers or judgment, impartial judge. But this isn't what they're talking about. They're talking about equality of outcomes. And of course they're saying generation because this is the hot topic right now, that boomers had it good. Trish Prue, the $5 super chat. Trudeau totally agrees with generational fairness. He's screwing over all the generations. This baby boomer loves you, Clyde. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And again, of course, you're going to find discrepancies with certain generations. Like, oh, shucks, I wasn't around to buy IBM when it first, was offered. I mean, it's just a timing issue. But you can't argue that this is something that we need to. Oh well, they had a better opportunity, and some of them were able to purchase homes at a time that we hadn't screwed over the market yet. So, in fairness, we should take away their property. This is where they're going with it. Obviously, this is the whole concept. Now, I don't know how much of that video I really want to get into. Now, Northern Perspective, they did a video about this. I'd recommend people go over and watch that. It's called "The Biggest Threat to Canada is Happening Right Now," and I agree with them on this because the biggest threat to Canada is losing your right to property. I believe this wholeheartedly. Because I'm such a firm believer in the market economy. I'm such a believer that the market economy is something that will bring us all out of poverty. More freedom to open up businesses, try things out, try it out and fail. Great, sure. You know what that does? It tells other entrepreneurs, hey, that's a bad idea. Don't do that. What happens in a centralized planned economy? Nobody knows in time that was a bad idea, and even when they figure it out that it's a bad idea, there's enough people on the take that are getting something out of it. They're not gonna kibosh that. They're gonna keep going with it, and that's exactly what they'll do. So yeah, no, I'm a huge believer in the market economy, but the predecessor, the thing that glues the market economy together, the thing that you cannot have a market economy without, is property rights. Property rights. Contracts being upheld by courts. This is what's important. And this is why this is the biggest threat to Canada, and it's happening right now. The biggest threat is the idea that your property can just be taken from you. Why? Because, well, it's a popular thing and there's enough people getting behind it to say that, all right, well, we want to take your property away. This is why we should really, focus on the idea that your natural rights are fundamental and they cannot be taken away by government. The government should not have the authority to do this. It just sickens me what they have done to Cypher and Fox. I still haven't gotten used to calling them Ryan and Tanya. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, it really it sickens me what they did to them. But they'll keep doing it. They'll keep doing it until, well, until they knock all of us out or until they lose. And this is why we got to keep fighting. But yeah, definitely check out this video. I don't want to get too much into this because, well, it is what it is. It is what it is. And I'm struggling with my I'm being a boomer today with this whole technology thing. Technology. Everyone's scared of technology. I do want to pop this up because I thought that this was a poignant thing. I don't know that many details on it just yet. We're getting there. And just before we get to that, Milady Loves Cats with a $20 super chat. Thank you so much. Very generous of you. I really appreciate that. Bottom line is that this language is set to the younger generation to go against the older generations also. This stinks so much. It absolutely stinks. It stinks. But this is the thing. So Trudeau knows he's already lost the older generation. The older generation is not voting for him in the next election. He's already set his sights on them. He's screwed them over enough by, well, inflating the money. And you're talking about people on fixed incomes. People on fixed incomes, and the only thing that they've got is maybe the equity in their home. Yeah, they're not going to vote for this guy. Not again. And he's also losing the youth. So he's playing one of these games where he's like, well, what can I do? Do I sell out? Do I sell out the youth that I think might still vote for me? Or do I sell out the old people who I've already lost? Who do I try to win over in this divide and conquer game? Well, he's chosen the youngins, which he's definitely going to lose. He can't. I can't stress that enough. Oh, it's a share this tab instead. Catching on. Okay, so Lion Advocacy on Twitter posted this. I believe this was yesterday. I caught this a few days ago. The official, it's official, forced COVID-19 nasal swab PCR tests for incoming travelers under the Quarantine Act were unlawful. This is according to the Justice Paul Monahan of the Ontario Court of Justice. Stay tuned for full decision. The implications of this ruling are massive. Well, it is absolutely massive because this is the whole basis that they put people in quarantine under, because they tested positive when they came in the country, and they trampled on people's rights, mobility rights. They falsely imprisoned people. This is really good to check out. I can't wait until there's more information on this. But yeah, this is it. So from the thing, I do decide that nasal swab test, which screening officer in this case required or demanded Ms. Fernando submit to, was an unlawful requirement or demand. Ms. Fernando's refusal to comply with the requirement or demand was lawful on her part, because the requirement or demand of her by the screening officer was not lawful. Ms. Fernando should not have been found guilty of the justice of the peace. I'm revising the justice of the peace decision. This is good news. And this is why people have been fighting for so long. I really get excited when I see this stuff, because it's refreshing. I love we had a lot of a lot of battles that we lost. But even in the battles that we lost in court, a lot of good things in discovery came out, which were then later used as arguments in further cases. So the more we fight this, the more we stay on top of it, the better we are. And I got to thank all the lawyers that are out there, Lion Advocacy. Eva Chipiuk's been on it completely. John Carpay, he's been out there. I know I'm going to be forgetting so many names, and I apologize, but there's so many out there that are fighting hard to make sure that they can't trample on our rights further. But this is where we are. They just don't stop. They just keep coming. nonetheless, let's get into this. I thought this was funny. So this is news. Pierre Poilievre, while housing costs double, 2 million line up at food banks, jobs and businesses vanish. Trudeau has been trying and failing to fire his finance minister to hire carbon tax Carney. It's not just humiliating for Freeland. It begs the question, if Trudeau doesn't have the confidence in his finance minister, why should anybody else? And this is great. This is great. And this is tensions rise between Freeland and the Prime Minister's office over economic messaging. Low approval ratings. Wow, people are waking up. Who would have thunk it? When bacon is $20, people tend to get uppity. They get a little uppity when they can't afford steak. It's only ground beef for dinner. They would love it if we went all the way to just eating the bugs. But I digress. Yeah, they want us to eat meat. I really don't understand the fascination with elitists and this whole like making sure we don't eat cows and chickens and pigs. It's a thing. Anyway, liberals being willing to sacrifice anyone, even the most blindly loyal, says Jody Wilson-Raybould. Oh, I love this tweet. I really had to share this tweet on this live stream. This is great. Jody Wilson-Raybould saying, the liberals being willing to sacrifice anyone, even the most blindly loyal, to try to protect and save a leader. It makes it clear it's no longer a healthy or functioning party, not to mention government. It's not a healthy or functioning government at all. No, not at all. And of course, Trudeau running and hiding, staying away from his caucus in this whole situation. Now, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is asked how Canada plans to fund the estimated $15 to $20 billion annual increase in the defense spending. Let me pull this one up. I got to do it on the other thingamabobber here. We get this. Share this one instead. Whoa, I'm nailing it. I'm pulling this one out. Getting things done. What does he have to say about this? And it's buffering. I thought I was on it. I was congratulating myself. I was congratulating myself, and then that happened. What if we refresh?
A plan to spend this money, but you also have a plan to pay for it, because the estimates are this is going to cost $15-20 billion annually in perpetuity. How do you do that in the fiscal framework? Do you cut other programs? Do you go deeper into deficit?
We have demonstrated over the past number of years that we can and have been investing in our national defense. $175 billion of projected new investments in national defense, and now and into the future.
Projected investments. Did he really come out and say that? We've demonstrated that we're projecting investments into the future. Yeah. Holy cow. That's all it took? That's all it takes? That's all it takes? Oh, yeah. Tax man comes to the door. How do you expect to pay this tax bill that you haven't paid in, I don't know, 10 years? Well, you see, I've made commitments to future payments of these things. Get out of here. No way. They're not going to take that as what? They're going to buy that and actually go with that? Forget it.
In a responsible way, and at a time where we're also stepping up with the most ambitious housing plan Canada has ever seen. Investing in childcare, because we know that's not just a social...
Yeah, it's the most ambitious plan that's ever been seen, is because you're not going to pull it off. Sorry. We only have enough tradespeople to build 230,000 homes at best, at top capacity. That's if we can even get all the supplies, because, all our lumber mills are shutting down. I wonder whose fault that is. Just throwing that out there. But what if we don't even have the supplies? It's crazy. This is absolutely nuts. Jilly Beans with a $2 super chat. We all know what the liberals love. That the liberals love projection. Yeah, it's projection. Absolutely. What is it? Viva Fry always says. confession by projection. Totally unreal. Yeah, you can't be serious. Yeah, so you made a plan. You made a plan that nobody's ever going to be able to fulfill. You promised money in the future that it's just an IOU. Okay, you got something? A little something concrete, maybe?
Social program that's also an economic program. Creating economic growth, creating record high employment.
Record high employment at the government is record high spending. It's a record high expense. Full Wookie. I love the name. $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Full Wookie. I love that. Replacing Freelander with Carney. It's like Trudeau pooping his pants and changing his shirt. Okay, I like that. That's good. That's a great analogy. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Investing in the green jobs of the future.
The green jobs are all government jobs. Okay, I keep having to tell people this. It's criminal that included in the GDP is government spending. If you make a job for the government, you're not creating a job. You're spending money. That person who's working for the government, I know they'll put taxes on your thing. They might as well not do that. Because that just costs more money. When you tax a government employee, it goes back, and then you have to, if you have more government employees, you end up having to make more jobs again in the government just to run the bureaucracy of taxing the government employees. It's ridiculous that this is a thing, and people don't call it out. Like, the government adding tax spending, the government adding spending to the GDP is the same as going to your accountant and he says, listen, we're having problems here because you're kind of overspending. You're running shy on keeping within a budget, and you're a little underwater this month. We might be able to make it up next month, but we're definitely going to have to cut some spending. And then you say, tax accountant, it's all good. It's all good. See, I got this plan. I just hired some people to install an in-ground pool in the backyard, and I got a bunch of landscapers. So when we put that on the books, we'll just put that in as the spending, the income for the house. We've made a bunch of new, we've got a bunch more revenue going in and out of the house. So yeah, we're good. We're good, right? Craziness. Absolute craziness. Nuts. It's criminal. It's criminal. The GDP should never include government spending. Government jobs, this is the thing, it boggles my mind that people fall for it every single time. Record job numbers. Government employment should never be considered employment, because governments will always hire more people to pad the job numbers. If you discount government employment, we are at record unemployment. Record unemployment. It's unbelievable.
These are things we're doing even as we invest record levels in our military and continue to.
We spend record amounts of money. That's all that translates to for me.
The situation, the global context requires us.
Translation, this is a global thing. It's not about us. It's happening everywhere. No, it's not. There's a lot of things that are localized to this country because of this administration.
To be stepping up on defense. But I will remind people that stepping up on defense investments doesn't just involve spending money outside of this country. It means investing in capacity building, in good jobs, in innovation, in factories, and development of economic growth.
So I'll tell you a little something. So the reason why we won the wars, the reason why we won the Second World War was not because of government. It was because of the the market economy. We had, and especially in America, they had the capacity to build so much stuff. Now we have almost no capacity. And not only that, we have, what was it? It was reported on. We have 3 days worth of munitions. If anything were to happen, if bullets were to start flying, we got 3 days worth of munitions, and we're out. Not replenishing that anytime soon.
In Canada, while we invest in ourselves and our ability not just to defend ourselves and our north, but our allies at a time where everyone is interconnected.
Oh, I have a hard time even listening to this guy's voice anymore. It really is difficult. But here's Ryan Garrettson. He says, Trudeau would rather spend money on teaching people not to poop on a beach in Ghana or put tampons in thousands of government men's washrooms than spend it on defense. People are noticing.
When the grenades are close to your own backyard, it gives you a renewed sense of priority and commitment. I mean, by contrast, shamefully, Canada announced in the last few days or last couple of days that they won't be ponying up. They're not going to do their 2%. Why? Well, talk about riding on America's coattails. They have the safety and security of being on our border and not having to worry about that. I think that's shameful. I think if you're going to be a member nation and participant, you need to do your part. Some have a greater sense of urgency about that, clearly, because the threat is at their own back door. But here's the reality. If we don't stop it there, it will come here. There's no guarantee. We live under this false assumption or false sense of security that we would never have a war on our own shores. But guess what? The enemy is here when the grenades are close.
Oh, it's just so refreshing to hear people actually say that. And, we heard it recently from Tucker Carlson, may have been months ago, but Carlson asking the question, seriously, like, is it not a national security risk for the United States of America to have the country with the longest border that they share be basically going through a communist coup? Is that not a giant national security risk? Like, forget Afghanistan, forget Syria, forget any of those places. The biggest national security threat for the United States right now is Canada. I hate to say it. I really hate to say it. It's terrifying. Some more of this stuff that I wanted to share this evening. Zoltan, of course, rumors are floating yet again that Trudeau is planning on throwing Chrystia Freeland under the horse. I get where you're going with that one. No surprises there. She was in over her head from the beginning. She always absolutely was. Oh, and of course he uses copywritten music, so I can't share that. Thanks for that. Zoltan, I know Zoltan's watching tonight. Stop using copywritten music. I'll share your stuff all the time. I love sharing your stuff. I can't do it when MCA Records is knocking on my door. I just can't do that. But of course, Stephen Taylor saying Freeland is getting Monroe'd right before our eyes. And why don't we get into this? Because wow. Okay. Before we get into that, let's get into this. So this is Frankie Bubbles, says Brian Lilly, one of Trudeau's top ministers, is asked whether the boss is an asset or a liability during a CBC interview. He's not too comfortable answering that.
You know that Justin Trudeau has become a lightning rod for a lot of the dissatisfaction in this country. And is he a liability going into this election, or is he an asset?
I would say it's not.
He's an asshat. Yeah.
It's what you've seen in other countries, that when people are facing a lot of issues, there's frustration. And frustration is reflected oftentimes, you've seen in the recent election, on their leaders. And therefore, there is that. But when you step back, that's why I say to people, in which society, leaving the personalities apart, in which society do you want to live in? What is dear to you? Okay. How would to whom would you give the key of the house? That's really what I say to folks. And when I'm in the street, people said, I'd rather give you the keys.
Liability or asset?
I would say I'm always focusing on making sure that we do what's right for Canadians, and they'll
I'm always focusing on not answering that question. I'm really, really doing my best to avoid it. Please don't ask it again, because if you ask it again, I'm gonna have to come up with a different way of dodging around it.
make the final choice. That's how democracy works.
You are not saying that the Prime Minister, that Justin Trudeau, is an asset
Well,
going
I'm
into
saying
the next election.
he's the leader. He's been providing leadership, and that's what Canadians want to see. It's not an issue about. I'm not going into these whether people would see it. They see in him the leader of the Liberal Party, and certainly has been an asset in providing steady leadership over more than, I would say close to a decade now. And people, when they look at, and have you seen what is on the offer on the menu? I would say most people that I know would be concerned about giving the keys to anyone else at a time where we're going to a very turbulent time. People want people with experience, expertise, and leadership. And in that sense, people know who he is and know who we are. It's a team sport.
Nobody wants the keys when you've crashed the car. You've crashed the car, the brakes have bled out, and now it's starting to roll down the hill, and you're trying to pass the keys over to somebody else. And nobody wants it. And this is where it takes me on to this thread. And this thread is amazing. Let's get into this. Right before that, we got Scott Gallant with a $5 super chat. Chihuahua man. I like that. Thank you, Scott Gallant. I appreciate that. The Chihuahua man. Here's something that became pretty interesting, and it's great because I like when you get to hear a little bit of the insider stuff. I don't know how much of this is strategy and how much of it is whatever, but Michelle Rempel Garner is how you pronounce it. There you go. She put out this Twitter thread, and I thought this was fantastic. She subsequently also put out a YouTube video, but let's get into her Twitter thread because I want to get into this. Why is Justin Trudeau pushing Chrystia Freeland off the political cliff? And why is Mark Carney named in this story? I think this is an interesting one altogether. Canadians woke up to reports from top reporter Robert Fife that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was actively considering turfing his most loyal foot soldier, Chrystia Freeland, from her role and replacing her with carbon tax proponent Mark Carney. There's so much to unpack here, but starting with the following point is crucial. This is a purposeful leak made by the PMO, and it is as close to a formal announcement as it gets. Now, this is why I like hearing from these insiders that talk about these scenarios, because this is legit. This is legit, as insider as it gets when it comes to this kind of thing. How do they push forward talking points? Do they? Somehow it leaked to the media. Oh, it leaked to the media, did it? Oh, it totally just accidentally leaked to the media. No, this is how they do the announcements. This is how they test the waters and see what the reaction is going to be like before they make any announcements. Fife's article cites an anonymous source, but it was almost certainly someone highly placed in the Prime Minister's office with a mandate to purposely leak this information. There's no possible logical way that Mr. Trudeau's PMO, which functions in a constant state of media lockdown, would randomly and without purpose leak this type of damning information to Mr. Fife, Canada's most devastating and well-read investigative reporters. Nothing short of a full-throated, proactive declaration of support of Mrs. Freeland from Trudeau himself will prove otherwise. Now, I like the next part. I mean, I could give you guys the link so you could read through the whole thing entirely if you'd like. But this is where it gets to the point where, I see what he's trying to pull now. And this makes sense. And this is obviously Michelle Rempel Garner's take on it. So this isn't like absolutely obviously this is it. But this could very well be the case. And it sounds like a clever strategy, actually. For months now, former central banker carbon tax Mark Carney has been circling the heavily wounded carcass of Mr. Trudeau's political career like a turkey vulture that hasn't eaten in weeks. It's hard for Mr. Trudeau to rally the troops and convince Liberals that he should lead the team into the next election with this sort of thing going on. But by notationally offering Mr. Carney the finance minister role, Trudeau clips his wings. Well, how does this work? If Mark Carney doesn't take the job, it's easy for Trudeau's leakers to characterize Mark Carney as to potential Liberal supporters as opportunist who didn't want to do the heavy lifting of government when the chips are down. It also forces the media to ask whether he'd take the job. If he takes the job, it forces Mark Carney to take on some of Mr. Trudeau's water, putting him in the same league as the other, and more preferable and more preferred by Team Trudeau. Says read Dominic LeBlanc, Melanie Joly, eventual top contenders for the Liberal top job. Either way, Mr. Trudeau has undoubtedly made more difficult for Mark Carney to continue to have a toe in multiple worlds. He can't continue to swan around in some of the plum roles as if he looks like he's going to leave them for a formal political role. It's now shit or get off the pot time for Mark Carney. Brutal move. To be clear, no matter what anyone says, it isn't about giving Mark Carney a chance to manage Canada's finances, much like how Mr. Morneau was treated. If he didn't take the role, Mr. Trudeau would force Mark Carney to use his lefty ESG business or bona fides to sell Mr. Trudeau policies, not the other way around. Also, unless Mark Carney ran an upcoming by-election and won a tall order right now, because of the whole Toronto situation where they lost miserably. Well, not miserably. They lost in a stronghold, which is crazy. He would be finance minister without any direct accountability to the Canadian public, something the electorate is not in the mood for right now. Win-win for Trudeau, lose-lose for Carney. I don't know. What do you guys think? This is. It sounds like a. What do we got here? We got a Mr. Up North in the chat saying, never. I have too much colorful. Okay, you're talking to the chat right now. But this is a strategy. So this is the idea of a strategy put forward by Justin Trudeau to basically clip the wings of Mark Carney. I tend to agree with, and since Marty's in the chat now, I tend to agree with Marty's sentiment on Mark Carney. Mark Carney in the past, or Mark Carney just generally, Mark Carney, why would he put his hat in the ring and be, what did Marty call it? Be the, what was it, like the rebound girlfriend for the Liberals? Like, why would he want to be the rebound after Trudeau gets dumped? It doesn't seem like a thing that he would want to do. It seems more like he would not be interested in the role. The Liberals are not getting voted in again. Like, it's not happening. And if it does, I will be absolutely surprised. Mark my words on that one. Full Wookie with a $20 super chat. To be completely fair, this is a global problem, and he's the problem. The lefties have usurped and co-opted as much global power and influence as they can. They've invaded anything, especially friggin' Star Wars. Okay, I'll give you that. They've invaded Star Wars, and Star Wars sucks now. Like, all the good properties that I used to love to watch, I won't watch anything. My rule is if there's a sequel, I'm not watching it. It's just not happening. That's not doing it. Why would I even entertain that? They're just gonna ruin it. But yeah, no, you raise an interesting point there with that. But yeah, the lefties. Really, is it really at this point, is it a left-right divide thing? What I see is people who because I see people even on the right that aren't for liberty. I think it's a liberty versus authoritarianism game at this point. And there are people on both sides of the aisle, left and right, that are happy to send us right down that road to serfdom. So this is a time where we really need to fight for liberty. This is a time where we need to educate people about what liberty is. I mean, this is how far removed we are. People don't even know what liberty is anymore. People don't understand the concepts of liberty and free enterprise. This is what we need to be talking about. And speaking about talking about things, I've got some friends joining me tonight, and I'm sure a bunch of you are expecting this because you jumped in because you saw the links out on Twitter or in Discord or wherever how you happen to be seeing this. And I'm really excited about tonight because normally I'll have one guest on and I'll bring in one guest and it's about that. This time, this is kind of an experiment. Let's run a panel. Let's bring in a couple of people, and we'll talk about a myriad of different topics. And well, without further ado, I want to add to the stage first, Bratney to the stage, and thank you very much, Yukon Strong, for coming out. Appreciate you guys coming. Thanks for joining me.
How's it going?
It's going.
Hey, sorry. I just went and grabbed a beer from the fridge. Sorry, I wasn't quite ready yet. So let me get settled here. And thanks for having me, Clyde.
I've always got my wobbly pops going during the live streams every time. I can't. There we go. So this is not my first time talking to you, Brat, because we were chatting about a big controversy that was happening a couple of weeks ago. But this is my first time talking to you, Yukon Strong. Do I call you Yukon Strong? What do I call you?
You can call me Yukon or DJ. DJ is my real name, but everybody calls me Yukon now, ever since I started my Twitter.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, DJ works.
Yeah, sure. Doesn't matter.
Fair enough.
Everyone knows me as Yukon online, so call me that, I guess.
Perfect. Yukon it is. And Brat.
Hi, Brat.
So introductions. I want to do some introductions here, and then it's just a free form. Everybody just speak. I'm not asking questions, and then you guys have to answer them. Just jump in at any point, and we'll talk over each other a whole bunch. But just introductions at first. Brat, I've been following you on Twitter. The moment that I discovered you was when you did a Halloween costume of our favorite pumpkin latte drinking reporter. What was her name again? I forget. She blocked me forever ago.
Rachel Gilmore.
Rachel Gilmore. That's it. Okay, so you caught my attention with that one. I thought it was hilarious. I love humor in all this. A lot of people are getting, we're angry. We're angry about what's happening in Canada, but I love when people can put a smile on their face while you're angry about this stuff, because humor will get us through a lot of it. So I really appreciate that. This is Brat for everybody in the audience. Is it Bratney? Is that how you pronounce it?
Well, my name's Brittany, but my family, they've all called me Bratney since I was little. So yeah, it's Bratney. But that's not my real name. Obviously, it's Brittany.
I knew Bratney when she was just a little wee baby account. Me and her have been secret friends behind the scenes for a long time. I told her, I said, one day you're going to have an account bigger than me. Just watch. And here she is.
Aww.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah. No kidding. Yeah, you guys are awesome. And Yukon Strong, I've known you for some time. You make videos on the regular. It seems like handheld videos on social media talking about the situations that are happening, not just here in Canada, but all over the place.
Yeah, I've when I first got involved politically, it was more about the gun rights argument. I've been pretty much hiding and unhiding my property from the government since I was 15 years old, more or less, just to how our laws change. Some things are banned, then they're unbanned, then there's this, then there's that, and I just have gotten to the point, I guess, now specifically under the Trudeau regime, that I had to, somebody's got to do something about this. This is crazy, right? So I started really hard on the gun rights stuff, but that's a kind of just like the rabbit hole. You start pulling on that thread, you start to see the patterns, the similarities between other issues, not just gun rights, but the same strategies, the same media bias, the same divide and conquer and create a social crisis and then offer the woke solution to it on everything from climate to immigration to fiscal policy to everything. It's all the same scam now. And, I've worked a little bit with the CCFR in the past. I was out there for their Integrity March a few years back. It was one of the biggest gun rallies that Canada ever saw. And, they have done such a fantastic job over there at that organization, Tracy Wilson and Rod Giltaka. I don't know how
Big
they
shout
do
out
it.
to both of them, actually. I've
Yeah.
had Rod on the show several times. He's fantastic. Tracy's amazing as well.
Yeah, they are so fixated on just the gun issue, and that is an enormous burden to carry, and the patience they show to not wade into the other sections of the political nightmare we're in right now. It just, every time I see them online, I'm like, wow, you guys, how do you just stay on this, and thank God they do, because we would be in a world of trouble right now. I don't know if people out there know, but there are the main drivers behind the fight for property rights in Canada right now. You can go to their website, propertyjustice.ca, and they have a charter challenge right now underway trying to secure property rights for all Canadians, which would be a major game changer.
Well, I've been talking about this for ages. I think property rights are the most important fundamental thing that we need to be protecting at this point, and not just firearms, obviously, like all property rights. David Lametti, maybe 2 years ago, he was on TV when he was the justice minister. He was the justice minister, and he said to CTV that Canadians don't ultimately have a right to property. Like, that is an egregious thing. That, like, there should have been pitchforks and torches when that guy said that. Like, I have no idea how Canadians can sit back and just, like, listen to that. It's crazy to me.
Well, there's a really a much bigger discussion that we probably need to have regarding property rights and stuff, and it will play into some of the other things I want to talk about later. And I think probably what would be most beneficial to our viewers out there is we need to understand the problem, right? We're all very good at generating outrage and saying, look at this and look at that, and this is wrong, and we got to stop this. And we're onto them now, just like any politician, just even remotely starts to wiggle out of that Canada First role right now, and we're on them, right? We're very good watchdogs now. But I think the larger conversation is we really need to think about what is causing all of this in our society. And I would argue that it goes back to collectivism versus individualism. You framed it earlier. I was sort of watching there. You said authoritarians versus patriots or whatever, similar thing. But at the end of the day, individualists, what do they need from society? We just need to be left alone. That's it. We just need to be left alone. No taxes. We're not asking for anything. We want small government, small taxes, and the freedom to thrive on our own. Whereas collectivists, they are constantly trying to take from us, to control us, to do things so that they can benefit off of our hard work ethic and natural inclination to provide for society. So that's the war. At the heart, they are trying to do things to us, and we're just asking to be left alone. So really, when you look at any conversation out there, whatever the issue is, that's really what it comes down to now. The government is moving to ensure folks like you and I and Brad here, we can't even go down that path of self-sufficiency anymore. You will comply. You will pay the taxes. You will join us in our endeavor, and if not, there will be punishment. And that applies to the carbon tax, that applies to property rights, applies to free speech. And there's a very short window here, I think, for us to make some moves to prevent them from being successful once and for all. And I hope that more Canadians, regardless of political stripe, start thinking about these bigger conversations, because I assure you the other side is. And if we get some sort of woke constitutional reform in this country, it will be game over for Canada. So the time to start paying attention is now.
They're already
absolutely
trying
agree.
to implement taxes for equity and everything too. So It's not just stopping at guns.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. Yeah, that was the new thing that they're talking about. Is I was talking about this earlier. It's Operation Squeeze or Generation Squeeze. They're calling it. I mean, I labeled my video Operation Boomer Squeeze because you're trying to take the Boomer generation that have equity in homes that they bought years ago. I mean, it's sad that young people today, I'm included in this, can't buy a home, but. So what is this? Generational fairness. It's code. It's code for let's go rob them. Let's go let's give the government powers to go rob people. So it's scary for me. It's scary for me that the government's coming out with this divisive language and saying like, yeah, those guys had it really good. Let's take from them, so that we could give to everybody else. That never ends well.
Well, you guys are both from BC, right? From what I recall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm originally from Ontario,
Okay.
because most of us in British Columbia are unterrible, but
Actually, it's happening up here too.
it is
Lots of people coming up here from Ontario and BC now too. Well,
But yeah, I do live in BC, and Brad, you live in Surrey, but don't you work in Fort McMurray?
I live in Langley, and then I work northern BC, not in Fort McMurray, but I work in a northern mine, close actually up to where Yukon lives. Where I work, we're only a couple hours apart where he lives.
You drive one of the big trucks too, right?
Yeah, drive.
I love it.
she's a hard-working miner. Not an easy job.
Thank you.
No, it's not any. I've worked in the mining sector, and it's not easy work. Best shape
Lots of
I've ever
days
been in
off,
my
though,
life.
so it's good.
Oh yeah, I was in town, so it was every day.
My best friend growing up, his father owned a gold mine up in Dawson, so we would go up there just in the summer time as kids to goof off, and it was a placer mine, so we would operate these high pressured water cannons to run all the sluice into the box and stuff, and shoot guns and hunt and stuff. We were just kids, right? It was in the middle of nowhere. So
Oh, sounds boring.
well, it was actually pretty cool because like the amount of earth that gets moved, right, in order to mine, it's like incredible. So I remember the first time I went there, we'd go all day. They'd have these huge cats like D9s and stuff and scrape up all the minerals and whatever, and then go through and separate it all. And at the end of the day, we'd sit down in the cabin and we have this little bowl, right? And that was where all the gold was. And he would have this magnet that he would go through it, and all that was wound up in the bowl was the shavings from the blade on the caterpillar and the gold. Those were the two heaviest things. So he'd go through with the magnet and pull out all the shavings of the blade like this, and then he'd have just a little pile of gold left over, and that was the day's profit. It was wild, right? But in those days,
amazing.
gold was like 350 an ounce or something. Like, it was crazy. Now it's like it's over 2,000 now, I think.
Well, wasn't it like not profitable for the longest time? Like the daily cost of just going through that much material, using that much energy, just it wasn't worth the cost. So people just sat on their ownership of their mines because there was equity there.
Yeah, there's the mining saga in the Yukon has been a long and arduous one, to say the least. We've had really good, legitimate Yukon-based miners, some foreign-based mining as well too. But we've had Chinese companies come in, create huge economic disasters, claim bankruptcy, stiff the bill to dozens of Yukon businesses, and then leave without really any punishment whatsoever. So it's really.
Sucks.
Oh yeah, they've got it down to an art. They know how to play the government and get around the red tape and screw everyone over to get the resources they want. So that's a whole. We could probably do a whole show on that one. There's been multiple examples, and I'm sure Brad knows about the recent one we just sort of had up here too. There was another disaster. I don't think it was Chinese based company, but it was.
Yeah, Victoria Gold. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people lost out big on that now. So, yeah, it's a show in
Well,
itself.
let's talk, because I would love to pull you in for a show on that if you want to go in depth on that. There's so
Sure.
many issues in Canada that people just don't know about, like that they're just kind of swept under the rug. And I try to get to as many of these stories as possible. I know there's you guys are killing it, by the way. Like, you guys are on Twitter doing amazing work. And I try to showcase a lot of the stuff that you guys are putting out there. You know, being someone who's primarily on YouTube, I'm trying to share these stories as much as possible. So I'm showing your videos. I'm showing Brat's threads, like amazing hard work that you guys are doing, pulling out all this information. I mean, this is what it's all about. The idea that, you know, citizen journalists can, and I mean, I can't say it enough. Amazing work, like amazing work.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for saying that, but I just can't live with myself to sit back and watch what's going on right now without speaking up and encouraging, particularly other men out there. I want them to listen to that voice inside them and start saying what they think, no matter what, no matter where, no matter the consequences. Because if we start all doing that collectively as men in this country, we'll start leading the entire nation back to the right path. And it's just, for a lot of people, they're afraid of repercussions in the workplace. They're afraid of, they don't want to get involved. Canadians are just inherently, polite, and I don't want to cause a disturbance. But if we just continue to sit back and hope for the best right now, Canada will fail. That's where we're at right now. It's not an option to not be involved and expect a good outcome anymore.
Well, to be honest, are we polite or are we pushovers? Because I'm a dual citizen. I've always been, like, my American side and my Canadian side have always been in this feud. Anytime I get into like a situation, because, for example, on the gun rights issue. So the gun rights issue, if you bring up gun rights in America and you say, well, nobody should ever need to have a pistol for self-defense and defend themselves with a pistol.
Till you need one.
Well, Canadians would say, like, well, maybe there might be and concede the idea, and then try to defend some other abstract. But Americans would just say, no, it's my right, and you're not going to take it from me. That's it. Like, it's just straight up, like, no, you're not. No, we're not playing this game.
That's
Goodbye.
because they're armed already, and that's their right. Like, you can't tell people with weapons, no, right? Like, we're so weak, we don't have any rights to our. Well, we have some rights, but like not everybody can just go get a gun. So I feel like we don't have as many armed people to tell no.
Well, and I've seen this with, like, even Rod Giltaka, for example, when he's on, he uses different language than, like, the gun lobby in America uses. They don't call it a weapon. Like, the American gun lobby's like, yeah, we have rights to our weapons, but Canadian firearms owners are like, well, they're firearms, they're tools. We don't really call them that. And I'm not quoting Rod on this. And Rod, if you're watching, don't take me. I'm not taking you out of context.
Well,
but
do you know
it's
where
just like different verbiage.
You know where he
I
gets
noticed.
that from?
No, tell me.
The Canadian Firearms Safety Course. It calls firearms tools right in the course. You can't own a gun in this country unless you pass that course, and it explicitly states that right in the course material. You can't pass the test without understanding that a firearm is a tool. And I would argue that I have never used a weapon for self-defense in my life, whether it was a firearm, a knife, a baseball bat, or anything else, but I have used my firearm over and over again to feed myself, my sister, her family, my mother, my grandmother. I use my firearms every year to eat. So yes, that does make them a tool to me. And I think that Canadians, every single one of us, have a right to eat. We're lucky enough to live in a place that has abundant wildlife resources that are easily manageable with just very simple predator control and habitat protection, and we can feed ourselves. Again, that's the individualist point of view rather than the collectivist point of view. And for all the folks out there who say, well, hunting's mean and this and that and whatever, and if they close the grocery store on you, buddy, you'll starve. Your family will starve. I don't even have to worry about that. The animals walk through my yard. It's not a tenable situation, I think, to rely on government permission to eat in our country right now. We saw that during COVID. They literally where they tried. No, everybody forgets this, but there was like 2 days there where they started talking about banning the unvaccinated from the grocery store, and then everybody freaked out and recoiled, and they walked it back. But there was 48 hours where we're going to float this and see what happens. So
Well, this is what I mean. I think we need to recoil and freak out a little more often, because like if the Freedom Convoy told me anything, it's when we all band together and say nope.
That's right.
Then the government backs off.
Mm-hmm. Well, you said are we polite or are we pushovers? What I would say is that we have developed a pathological empathy in Canada where we just don't want to ruffle feathers, and no matter how bad it gets, there is a certain portion of the population that says, okay, well, I'll just stay out of this, and it's a pathological empathy. We're rapidly approaching the point where we're going to have, kids in our classrooms that are going to be like, this will sound crazy, but I don't think it's that crazy. They're going to be like, well, little Johnny likes to crap his pants in the middle of the classroom. And people will say, well, that's his right to crap his pants. And the other kids, they got to sit around him and they got to do this stuff, and that's inclusivity and we're tolerant. And it's like, no, it's not. We need to teach him that that's not acceptable. Right. And I'm just using that as an extreme example, but there's
I know, but it sounds ridiculous, but so many things that are true today would sound ridiculous. They still sound it's all ridiculous.
There's absolutely no consequences. Mediocrity is encouraged and rewarded. Professional victimhood is taught that that's the path, not self-improvement. And, you said something to me at the beginning of this that I wanted to go back to, Clyde. You said that you're a younger person and you're probably not going to be able to own a home in Canada. Well, I'm 44 years old now, and I just bought my first home 2 years ago, okay? And I saved and I saved and I saved for 20 years to afford my home. And I did it because I didn't want to have a mortgage, because I knew if I got a mortgage, it would be, I would pay nearly as much as interest on the mortgage as I would as the home price with current rates and stuff. So yes, it's still possible, because despite my age, I was in the same economic climate as you, and as well the same price market as you, and it still can be done. It just requires discipline. I drive a 2007 Ford Ranger, for Pete's sake. It's a great little truck, but I'm not paying payments on it, right? I don't have debt. I'm diligent. I don't spend my money except on things and tools that I need that help me with life. And when I buy something, I take care of it until it breaks. Look at my hat.
Fair enough.
Yeah. That's funny.
So, yeah, it is possible. Don't give up hope, Clyde, and make as smart decisions as you can. And if we can get the spending under control in this country, Canadians will have a prayer at least going the mortgage route. But right now, it's economic suicide. The bubble's going to pop at some point. And people are
why would you buy on the high? I'm really like anybody who gets into the housing market right now, it's like you're talking about a negative equity situation where you're buying a house for what, $1 million plus, and who knows where that house price will be tomorrow.
Plus the tax on it now.
Only plus the tax. And then what's crazy? Well, if we all lost equity, do you think that the government's going to give us a rebate instead of a tax? I don't think so. That's not the way it works. Never works the other way around. But it's crazy. Like, at what point is too much? Is it too much? Now you've heard of the Laffer curve, right? So Laffer was an economist, and he came up with this idea that there's this bell curve, right? If you tax people, you'll get to a point where you hit that 50% threshold, and then that's when the taxes revenue actually falls off, because people check out. They're like, okay, well, I'm not gonna engage in this economy. I'll move to another country, or I'll take my investments and I'll move those to another country. I'll work under the table. There's all kinds of ways of people skirting taxes, bootlegging alcohol and cigarettes and all these other things that people can do to get away from it. But you see more of it as the tax burden gets more and more and more. And this is the phenomena called the Laffer curve. At what point do Canadians say, like, have a Boston Tea Party? I mean, the Boston Tea Party was a 2% tax on a single commodity, and it sparked a revolution. What are we doing?
Hey, you guys want to talk Boston Tea Party? Check out my new flag.
I love it.
Nice.
Do you know what that is?
No, I'm
My
not
friends,
familiar with it.
that's the Republic of Western Canada. So here you go. This is the prairies, right? There's the mountain, Rocky Mountains. Then you got Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, Northwest Territories, Nunavut, BC, and there's the big star in the north, Yukon.
Oh, be careful making flags with your own thing, because you know what happens.
Well,
You
here's
don't want to
the
be one of
thing.
those flag men.
The flag people.
Well, obviously, Western separation that would be a last resort for Canada, I think, right now. But, fundamentally, it would allow the opportunity, as you said, to have, the Boston Tea Party. It would allow the Canadian people to start talking about a new constitution. And we can talk more about that later, maybe after we talk about the election stuff. But there's another point I wanted to circle back to regarding BC and the housing situation there. So
It's not just BC, it's all of Canada. It's crazy. It's nuts what's happening.
Well, this is BC specific. So my cousin's fiance, she is an architect for actually a pretty prominent firm in Vancouver. And they have just changed the regulations there now so that all new construction that she's working on has to have two things. Number one, it has to be 100% wheelchair accessible, and it has to either have an elevator if it's multi-story, or have a provision and space built into it that an elevator can be installed later. So, like, you were talking about adding an exponential expense to new construction there, right? And what does that do? It bumps the price of the building, whatever it may be, over that $1 million threshold, which now the federal government is saying, well, we're talking about this little extra tax now. There's rumors rumbling that any home valued over $1 million, they're going to start adding an annual tax, like a luxury tax on it or whatever, right? But it's like,
And it goes to your property tax too.
correct.
Anything over $1 million. There is nothing under $1 million in British Columbia.
Exactly, right? So it's like, again, we have a government creating a serious social trauma and then offering a solution, which of course involves paying the government more money. That's the fix. If we give you guys more money, everything will get better. It's like, no, it won't, guys.
And we
Look
have
around.
that property transfer tax, don't forget, that Alberta and the Yukon don't have. I don't think Saskatchewan has it either, just Ontario and BC.
Yeah, that's absolutely
We used to
brutal.
make fun of the English for having a window tax, for having a TV tax. Like, what is it that we've gone so far from our roots, man? It's crazy. And I'm not talking like, old stock Canadian or anything like that. I'm just talking about, like, we fundamentally, we were largely untaxed for the large majority of Canada being a country. And they just keep adding more and more and more. And again, I keep getting to this point where it's like, when is enough? When is it? Because usually what happens is people get inundated with too much, they freak out, and then a lot has to fall. Not just incrementally, oh, okay, we'll be fine with that. Once people reach that point of, like, freaking out, the solution's got to be, give us one tax and that's it.
I would agree with that, but I think that even if we ignore all of the boutique taxes that the Liberals have put on Canadians, the carbon tax, luxury tax, the capital gains tax, all this nonsense. Actually, I'm going to be doing an interview with a lady here shortly who's kind of an expert in this stuff. She's an older gal. She hates Trudeau.
I love the air quotes.
Yeah, she's an older gal, but she's been doing tax stuff for years and years and years. I can't wait to get her on my channel. Everyone's going to love her. But the reality is this. Let's just set all that aside for a second, and let's just consider how money is taxed in Canada, right? So let's say you start a business, right? and I don't know, maybe you're opening an auto shop or a clothing store. I don't really care what it is. But the bottom line is everybody who comes into the store, when they buy something, the government taxes them, right? And the province in some cases. So the money that they give you is taxed, but the money that they're giving you was already taxed from their income tax before it even reached you, right? And then you take that money, you have to pay taxes on all the money you receive. Then you pay your employees, and they are taxed on it too. So basically, how this chain reaction goes is anytime money changes hands in our country, the government takes a share. You can't buy things, you can't sell things, you can't employ people, you can't be self-employed. Every single thing we do fundamentally causes the government to take our income. So by the time somebody earns a dollar and it goes through people's hands, 4 or 5 times, the government has it all, right? It's really, we don't have a prayer. I don't think in Canada right now, if the current economic situation continues, we have a compound tax. We're paying GST on top of the carbon tax. I don't know any other democracy in the world that has a compound tax like that. Like, that's insane. It's absolutely insane. And, obviously people need a place to live. They need a home. And this is the biggest thing that you save up for and work for in your life. For most people, it's the hugest financial commitment that you're ever going to make for the majority of people. And now the government's saying, well, even though we taxed you on your income tax for 2 decades to pay for that house, well, we're going to tax you again now for owning it. We're going to tax you on the property tax just for where it is. We're going to tax you now when you sell it. We're going to tax you when you transfer it. Like,
When you
can't
gift it, you can't
Yeah.
even just give it to your children
When you
without paying taxes.
when you die
Yeah.
and people inherit it, it's
Everything.
egregious. And it really comes down to the fundamental thought that at the end of the day, the government owns your property. You don't own your property.
Correct.
The
You're
crown,
essentially
the crown
renting
owns it all, yeah.
Yeah, you're essentially renting it. Renting
you know
it
what's in-
and for a determined amount of time. It depends on how much
As
money
long as you
got.
pay your property tax, it's yours, but you stop and the bank's gonna take it.
You know what's actually an interesting thing is
Nuts.
if you go look up how the Charter of Rights and Freedoms was formed in Canada and the discussions around it, Justin Trudeau's father, Pierre, actually advocated in multiple instances to put in property rights into the Charter. He tried, but the authoritarians, we'll call them, that's what Clyde likes to call them, around him, they were the ones who sidetracked it repeatedly and talked him out of it. Now, you can argue, if you're going to look at the Charter, it has multiple avenues for the government to legally violate the rights laid out within that document. So it's kind of a sham, in my opinion, to begin with. I know there are some legal precedents that have been established from it, but the bottom line is, all the rights listed in that document are only valid if you're willing to, go through a multi-million-dollar lawsuit, sue the crap out of the government, and have some woke justice side in your favor somewhere, somehow down the line. Maybe then you'll get some justification, but it will not prevent the violations that you endured and the loss for society in the interim. So, like, really, I don't know, even if he had have put property rights into the Charter, if it would still be, a strong enough piece of legislation to protect our stuff today. Because as we saw with the Freedom Convoy, as we see with firearms, as we see with vehicles, as we're seeing with homes, the government wants it all now. They want it all.
No, I'm
They're
not the
gonna
type
start
to.
taxing lottery winnings if we're not careful.
Well, the Americans are American neighbors. They all have to pay on lottery
50%.
and
50%?
it's big.
Yeah, it's huge in the States. Yeah, I think it's half if you win there.
You go to the casino. This is why they always come to our casinos, right? In
Yeah,
Canada.
it's like sweet. Yeah, you only have to win half as much to make the same. But
that house always wins. That's the gag, though. It's like you're gonna lose. That's the addiction. That's why people get into it. Hey, I got a couple of super chats I want to get to here before we get into.
wait a
another
minute, what's a
topic.
super chat? Tell me what a super chat is.
A super chat, that's when somebody leaves a tip donation and,
Okay,
and
right
then
on.
there's a chat attached to it. highlight a few of these. Jilly Beans for $5 says the woke death cult has penetrated much of the world, setting up for global communism. Also, the remakes of all those movies. Stop the remakes. Just stop them. I agree. I'm done with the remakes. I can't handle it. I don't want to see another all-female cast for Ghostbusters or whatever it is you're making these days. Make an all-female cast of something. Sure, make it an original. I'll watch it. I'll probably really enjoy it. But just make something original. I'm just tired of my favorite things being destroyed. Anyway, Jilly Beans also for $2 says the Yukon from a former Yukoner. There we go. Awesome.
Uh-oh,
Perfect.
maybe we know each other. It's a small place up here.
That's like that whole, oh, you're from Canada. Do you know Doug?
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually
Goko
crazy.
Donnie with a $10 super chat says there's so much, there is no such thing as a buyback for guns, only legalized theft. Legal gun owners are not the problem, full stop, regardless of the platform they legally purchased. I absolutely agree with that. There's like, it's property at the end of the day. And a lot of people would say, like, back in the day, the founding, people who made, they weren't envisioning.
Hey, DJ.
Right. I'm on Starlink, so I freeze up every once in a while.
Yeah, just so you guys know, actually the entire internet for the Yukon was down for about 24 hours. I'm lucky to be even online right now. So
You're
Oh,
Starlink?
awesome. Well,
yeah,
I'm on Starlink right
Mine's
now.
fun. We're all on Starlink.
yeah.
I've
Starlink
got
cuts
trees
out your-
all around, so every once in a while, like there's no satellites in the sky for about 10 seconds, and that's what these pauses are all about. But yeah, getting back to the U.S. has the Second Amendment. Canada doesn't have a Second Amendment. It would be nice if we had something like a Second Amendment. But what the argument always is that, well, the people back in those days, they had no idea that you were going to have like such amazing weapons that they have today. It's not true. They were talking about some pretty amazing equipment. Even the founding fathers of the United States were talking about, some of the Gatling guns that were just being developed at the time, and it was amazing stuff. And they were stoked about it, and they were hoping that anybody could own it, not just the military or anything like that. So I mean, that's kind of my perspective on that. But I'm a everybody should own a gun kind of guy. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think it should be right. Yeah, I believe it should be right.
Well, the Second Amendment was not created to protect firearms. It was created to protect the citizenry from a dangerous government. And you could make the argument, okay, yeah, there's more dangerous guns now, I guess. But I would say the government's never been more dangerous than it is right now either. And I do not need a firearm if I'm a criminal or a bad person to take life, right? We see people use cars, knives, bombs. We see people who have a compulsion to kill and harm innocent people. And some people, they'll do it repeatedly. That's a real problem in Canada now too. And until that fundamental compulsion is resolved, it won't matter what weapon they have access to. Like, look at prisons, right? It's a facility designed to secure people from having any sort of weapon whatsoever, and yet murder happens all the time, right? So the notion that taking away the guns will somehow change human behavior, I think is wrong. We have to look at root causes, and that's what I sort of alluded to at the beginning. A lot of the problems that we're facing right now, we're good at, like I said, being watchdogs and generating outrage and informing people about things that are wrong. But I think all of us, the more valuable goal that we should try to achieve is looking at the fundamental root causes, and firearms is a perfect example of that.
I absolutely agree. I totally agree with that. Obviously, the criminals are the ones that have. they're not going to listen to the rules. If nobody's allowed to have guns, well, I mean they're already prohibited from having them because they're criminals, and they still have them, and they're still going to use them. More super chats. Chili Beans with a $2 super chat saying Canada needs its own 2A. Well, we just discussed that. Absolutely. Thank you for the super chat. Also, for another one saying MB has land transfer tax. So
Manitoba.
Sorry
I
to hear
didn't
that,
know-
Manitoba.
I didn't know that they
Bummer.
had that.
Yeah.
Goko Donnie for $2 says 85% is the goal. They're almost there. Well, if we talk about what you were talking about, the compounding tax, they're well beyond 85% because every dollar that goes through the economy as it cycles through is taxed over and over and over and over and over again every time it changes hands, which is just absolutely crazy. Goko Donnie also adding, I just need a pencil. Let's see. Let that sit for a sec, LOL. I always talk about the story, the eye pencil. If you've never heard of it, it's an essay that was written ages ago, and it's about the pencil and how amazingly it's put together with all of these actors all over the world doing their own thing, their own businesses for their own personal gain, in order to make a number 2 pencil. If you think about all of the different people that are involved in that process, the people that are doing the balsa wood, the people that are mining the graphite, the people that are forming the graphite in factories with molds, and the people that are making the paint, the people that make the little rubber erasers, all of the things that go into doing that, all of those people are doing this not thinking about the other people involved. There's no central authority that makes it required the pencil to be made. It's just all these people acting in their own self-interest in a marketplace that eventually leads to a number 2 pencil being sold to you for a couple of cents. It's such a beautiful, beautiful thing that happens spontaneously in the market economy. And I every time I get a chance, I share this story. It's just, I don't know. I'm such a dork. I get excited about economics.
It's cool.
Well, we need sound fiscal policy in this country more than ever. So I wish more people were economic nerds, because like that is exactly what we need right now, man. Like they're printing money like no tomorrow, and that's why everything costs so much. That's why our interest rates are so high. Like it's out of control. There's been absolutely no consequence, for our government, regardless of any fiscal decision that they've made. And I think that's a direct reflection of the society that we're building through our education system. Like I said, they're raised without consequences, no matter how warped your worldview is. Oh, good for you, little Johnny. And they wind up getting in government, and then they start making warped fiscal decisions with our money. And here we are, on the brink of bankruptcy.
So I want to add this because, like, I get this all the time. People think I'm a CPC guy, and I'm not really a CPC guy. I'm a liberty guy. I don't care who the party is that talks about liberty. If they're talking about liberty, okay, I'll listen. Even the PPC talks about liberty, I'll listen. I find that it's one of those things where the PPC, it's not the band that I hate, it's their fans. They're like the Jehovah's Witnesses of the political movement in Canada.
Wow.
they don't stop harping you on Twitter if you say anything. It's a joke, obviously. I'm doing that, but one thing I want to add though is Pierre Poilievre, and I'm not pom-pom waving for him, is an economic dork. And I've followed that for a lot of years. And I'm not talking about the party as a whole, like the Conservative Party as a whole, but Pierre Poilievre himself. He knows fiscal policy. Like the guy's not a dummy when it comes to understanding how an economy works, why it functions, what can upset an economy, how the boom bust cycle works, all of this stuff. So he is knowledgeable about this stuff. So I mean, if you were to trust somebody in government when it comes to fiscal stuff, I think he would be the guy. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, this is what I think. I think right now we have a government that is hostile to our economy and hostile to taxpayers and hostile to anyone.
I wouldn't
who
disagree
works,
with you there.
Yeah, hostile to anyone who works outside of the public sector. So if we simply put someone in charge that is not hostile to our economy, a lot of Canadians, they have a natural inclination to work hard and better themselves and try and buy a nicer car and a home and provide for their families. And if we simply get the attacks stopped from our federal government, our economy will naturally heal on its own. So whether Polyev is a wizard or not, I think the threshold, the bar is so low right now that, like, literally, here, let's put it this way. Let's imagine Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland just went on holidays for the last 9 years and didn't show up and didn't push any fiscal policy in the House of Commons whatsoever. I want you to think about that. Would Canada
Where are
be
you
better
going
off?
with this? I know where you're going
Right?
with this.
Would Canada
keep
be
going.
better
I like
off?
it.
Absolutely. Absolutely, right? Like, if we just literally paid them a salary, even if we paid them $1 million a day, we would still be better off financially than where we are right now if they simply did nothing and just left the people alone, right? So it's not rocket science. You cut taxes, you open up the resources, boom, Canada's back. It happens real quick. But Polyev, I haven't I don't know. I have a hard time identifying with anyone who's, I guess, worked in government for that long, right? I don't get me wrong. I saw him today. He was in a school playground, and I think that was the strongest I've ever seen him. I hope he was speaking from his heart when he did that interview today. He was actually saying some things that really made sense, and he was refusing to bend the knee to the altar of the woke, which everybody was really happy to see, right? He's starting to catch on. This is what Canadians want. We want the anti-Trudeau more than anything else. But there's one thing that everybody missed in that little scrum that he had there. Everybody was happy. Yeah, he's getting rid of the drug injection stuff. And then he was talking about, what was it? I can't remember. There was some other issue. I don't know. I haven't watched the whole interview yet, but he answered really well. But there was a small section in there where he cited the desire for the woke people to use the Constitution to push these drug sites. He was aware of the Supreme Court judgments around him. And what that indicates to me is he's starting to sniff around the real issue in Canada, which is a lack of fundamental constitutional rights. That's really where all of our problems are stemming from. And to me, that's, if we can get Pierre Poilievre on board with constitutional reform, and this isn't the first time he's talked about it. He's brought up using the notwithstanding clause to get around other issues and stuff. And people will say, well, that's a double-edged sword and whatever. I agree. The government should not have a legal avenue to violate our constitutional rights. That's an untenable situation for the citizenry. But what it's showing to me is he's recognizing that the legal foundations of Canada are flawed. That's really why this back and forth cycle keeps happening. Like, we shouldn't have to have a panic attack when the party that we didn't vote for wins, right? We should have guaranteed rights that all the parties are forced to uphold. And instead we live in this statist dystopia where the government just does things to us. Like, why do you, like, it's not a normal situation for somebody to just get into office, right, and just spend 3 decades worth of money, right? Like, why do we tolerate that as a people? It's really what gave Justin Trudeau the right to spend $500 billion, just print that money. For the next 30 years, Canadians will be paying for that. And what did we get?
Well, the argument there would be that the voting public gave him the right, and I disagree with that. I fundamentally disagree with that. I don't think that should be a right, because personally, I think that deficits are something that should be avoided at all costs, because you're borrowing into the future. You're saying I want to pay. I'm going to pay this later to have these things now. But these things that you have now, they should be at least of benefit to the people who are going to be paying the taxes in the future. You're talking about Canadians that aren't even born yet, Canadians that haven't even emigrated to the country yet. We're
Correct.
talking about people that aren't here, and they're not the beneficiaries of the money that's being spent today. I think that should be a crime. Personally, I mean, that's just the way it is. I did want to get back to some of the things that you were saying about economies. There's this notion of what's called regime uncertainty. It's an idea brought up by Austrian economists. And this is the idea that a government can be hostile to investors. The government itself, the regime itself, could become hostile to people who might want to invest. And usually that comes in the form of a lack of property rights. And this is what you were getting into. If property rights are upheld, then you'll see better economic activity because people will have more confidence in investing in the economy, especially people from outside of the country, bringing their money and their capital into the country and saying, yes, let's build a project here. Oh, wait, your prime minister has been confiscating things from people. I'm going to not do that. I'm going to go invest somewhere else where they don't
risky.
confiscate. It's a risk, and yeah, it's just a concept of regime uncertainty. And when I hear Pierre Poilievre talk about economics, I feel like he's a guy that actually understands these concepts. And whether or not he's going to do the right thing, that's another story, right? Yeah, you could be the guy that understands these things, but when you get into the position of power, whatever it happens to be, that guy knocks on your door and says, well, you're going to play ball with us now. And does he or not? I don't know. Well,
here's a more important
time.
thought. Okay, so whether Pierre Poilievre is your guy, or Justin Trudeau is your guy, or Maxime Bernier is your guy, I want you all to consider something. Eventually, all of them will not be prime minister, right?
Yeah.
Let's say Pierre Poilievre gets in and he does a flawless job for 10 years, and Canada first all the way, makes absolutely no errors, passes amazing firearms legislation, starts looking to secure property rights, whatever, massive immigration cuts, all these things that would be very beneficial to our country right now. The very next Justin Trudeau will just undo it all, just like that. He will repeal legislation. He will resume the current agenda immediately and probably more aggressively to make up for that lost time. So really, for me, I've really stepped back from the party wars. For most of my life, I was a conservative voter until the last election. Aaron O'Toole obviously betrayed, I would argue, every conservative voter in the country. But in particular here in the Yukon, he fired Jonas Smith like 3 days before the election, a guy who we really want in politics. He was a prime candidate to start turning this country around. Total and complete betrayal for me personally. Like I really, it's very hard for me to go back to the Conservative Party after that. So I helped Jonas run as an independent. And this is actually a good segue into our discussion on the UK and France elections, because we did pretty good up here despite that savage vote split that we caused. I think it was I think Jonas got 13% or 17%. I can't remember what it was. But the bottom line is, despite him saying and doing all the right things, despite a large chunk of the Yukon supporting him, despite the betrayal from O'Toole, our reward was a Liberal MP, right? We live in a first past the post system, and
Wait, when were you going to get rid of that? Back in 2015?
well,
I remember that. I do.
Yeah, I do. I didn't vote
Yeah.
for I didn't want to even say what I was going to say. I didn't vote for the guy. I didn't think he was gonna fall through with any of that crap. I
Yeah.
thought it was all just smoke and mirrors.
Yeah. You know, like you said something earlier in this podcast. There's good people and there are bad people on both sides of the aisle. There are good
Yeah, there is.
conservative politicians. The fact that O'Toole was fired is a very good indicator, right? Like he was planning on being prime minister for the next 10 years. He's no longer employed, right? Like people turned on him because he turned on Canada. And you know, we saw him flip-flop on multiple issues in the lead up to it. But one of the biggest problems I had with O'Toole right off the bat is, I don't know if you know this, but the CCFR, whenever there's a leadership race, they always do an interview with all the candidates and give them a chance to talk to gun owners and their feelings about firearms and the state of things. And they held a private meeting with O'Toole, and it was like invite only, whatever. So I tuned into the podcast, and the first question was a natural one. Hey, what do you think about providing us some permanent protections here? And he says, well, I'll just be honest with you. You'll never have a right to own a gun in Canada. And I was just like, what? What are you talking about, man? What are you talking about? You'll never have a right to own a gun, because this leads into the larger discussion regarding property rights, right? So it goes beyond firearms. It goes beyond home ownership. It goes beyond vehicle ownership or land ownership. What
I was
else
just
does
gonna
it
say,
fall
you'll
under?
never have a right to own a car in Canada because we got 15-minute cities. Why would you need a car? You can get anywhere you want to go. Like these are the same arguments. You can use the same arguments for other things, and then but it wouldn't happen. That wouldn't give me a break. It wouldn't happen.
Well, look at how they talk to parents about parent rights, and they say you don't own your children; they have the right to make all the decisions they want. From 12
Oh yeah, it
years
takes
old.
a village to raise a child.
Oh, no, we're not. Don't get me started.
A
on
village
Marxism.
at Pride Fest.
Don't get me
yeah.
started on Marxism, guys. Oh my God. Okay, so here but this is an important thought. So yes, parental rights. Okay, but you know what else is property? Your own body, Clyde. Your own body
Absolutely.
is property, right? So this ties into the whole
It starts
vaccine
there.
rights.
It actually
right?
starts there. Your
Correct.
your natural rights start with your own body, and then they extend outwards to the things that you homestead, to the things that you create. This is where
Correct.
property rights originate from, and if you violate that, you've violated it all.
Yeah, like it's not a real country. So my hope for this is like it's pretty obvious Pierre is going to win the next election. I think it's right now that's the most likely outcome. It's not 100% guaranteed, but it's the most likely outcome. And we're going to see Justin Trudeau get very desperate here in the next year or so, and he is going to try a wild last minute gun grab. I assure you, he's going to go for it. And I'm actually happy for this, because what that's going to lead to is a segue for the incoming government for gun owners to say, listen, the Liberals have dropped the mask. They've put their cards on the tables. They want it all. There is an enormous urgency for property rights in this country. True fundamental, like it's not enough to rewrite the Firearms Act or repeal C-71 or C-21. Those are all great things. Don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, like I said, one day Pierre won't be prime minister. The agenda will resume. We'll be right back here again. So how do we stop it? We seek true, immutable constitutional property rights. And then that just settles the fight once and for all. And this is a politically agnostic argument. Like NDP people need to own the things they own. Liberals need to own their own body, right? This is not something that Canadians should be opposed to. But some will be, yes, but most won't be. And I think it's also very important to recognize that we have a situation here right now where we can leverage Justin Trudeau's authoritarian tendencies on this to socially engineer the Canadian people into voting for this, because you could propose a constitutional amendment that provides assured mutual destruction for both the left and right. You say, okay, we're going to open up the Constitution. We're going to add property rights and then some other woke nonsense thing in the same amendment, so that neither side could say, no, I don't want that, because both sides will be getting something. That would be one way to socially engineer the Canadian people into changing our rights for the better permanently.
My fear, though, is if we open up the door to the Constitution, then the authoritarians will jump in and they'll take over that opportunity. And there's huge danger in that. There's a huge danger in that. We've fought for so long, and with smarter people too, in previous times. A more enthusiastic public, a more educated public fought in previous times for the rights that we do have today. If we opened up that door in the moment today, there is so much opportunity for authoritarian thinking, and I'm talking like left or right authoritarians, to jump in and say, you know what, it would be really easy for me to govern the place if I had this opportunity and I took away a little bit more liberty here and put it in a constitutional convention. I'm terrified of that. But I mean, these are my fears, obviously.
Well, I'd like to hear Brat's thoughts on this too. What do you think? Because I have some counterpoints to that, but I think I feel like we've been sort of leaving her out here. And there's a couple things I want to ask. I want to ask Brat too.
She just jumped out.
Oh no! Well, now I feel really bad. Jeez.
I think she just had a hiccup. She'll probably be back in just 1 second.
Elon, fix Starlink. God.
Yeah, fix that Starlink. Let me get to a couple of super chats while we wait for Brad to come back. Where were we in this list of things? We got we already showed that one. Jilly Beans for $2 says facts don't care about your feelings. Of course they don't. And Brat's just coming back. Well, hopefully the connection gets good. Jilly Beans for a $5 super chat. Hanley was CMO of Yukon just so that he could make the money to campaign to take from Bagnell. I'm not sure who those people are.
Jilly Beans is actually definitely from the Yukon. Very few people outside the Yukon would know that. So what happened is Brendan Hanley, he was the chief medical officer during COVID, and the Liberals, they fed him federal funds to stock up on money for his incoming election. He was awarded $2 million in contracts in the lead up to the election. I think he was paid $800,000 in one and $1.2 million in the other, or whatever, which is an enormous sum of money for anyone to do a job for a year, right?
Yeah.
So she's absolutely right. You can go look up the contracts on the Yukon government website right now. Is definitely they were funneling money to him to help him win the election. That's the perception, anyways.
We got Scott Gallant for $2 says it's time for a revolution. Now I've been saying this a bunch. Like, you know, I started one podcast with the Beatles song. So you say you want a revolution, you know, well, you know. Yeah, we all want to change the world, but when you go talking about destruction, well, you know, you can count me out on that one. And I really especially like the line in the song where he says, and when you go carrying pictures of Chairman Mao, well, you're not going to you're not going to make it with anyone anyhow. That's a line in the Beatles song Revolution. So yeah, be careful what you wish for, because people have other agendas. People have other ideas of what they want to bring about. One thing that I was really proud of the truckers that went to Ottawa during the trucker convoy was the peaceful nature of their movement, because they knew that as soon as you bring violence to the game, the government has a monopoly of violence, and they're the best at it, and they're the most equipped to do it. So the best way to come forward against a tyrannical government is to do it peacefully. I mean, Mahatma Gandhi, he demonstrated this. He paved the way for us, and the trucker convoy really demonstrated that in a really good way.
Mm-hmm. Well, definitely, if you look at particularly with the gun rights argument and the CCFR, that's how they've really risen to prominent power too, with through their PR messaging that yes, gun owners are peaceful. We have the statistics to prove it. We are law abiding. If you go look up the numbers, like I've posted these numbers over and over again for years now. I've made videos on them. I try to do an update every time Stats can. The new RCMP commissioner, firearms commissioner report gets released, and I put out the data, and it's just like, look, everything that the government, the Liberal government is saying right now is completely untrue. Everything the anti-gun lobby is saying is completely untrue. The numbers simply do not reflect the threat that they're portraying. But the problem is the truth doesn't matter anymore. It's an ideological issue that they disagree with, and what do Liberals do to things they disagree with? They ban them. It comes down to two ideas with them: compulsory or banned. You must comply or agree with us on this issue or face consequences. If you don't, we're going to ban it so that you can't even do it. And they do that with, from everything, plastic straws to taxation to what you're allowed to say or think. So it's always those two ideas, compulsory or banned. And it's, like you said, very important to just overwhelm them with sheer numbers, right? Peaceful sheer numbers. That's how we do it. That's what's happening to them right now. The Canadian people are turning their backs on Justin Trudeau and the altar of the woke.
We mentioned the plastic straws. That one really irks me, because I mean, plastic straws are not banned in British Columbia, but they're banned at retail outlets. So you, like, if you are not retail, like restaurants and whatnot, you're not allowed to serve plastic straws here in British Columbia. But I could go to Amazon and I could buy a pack of plastic straws and I could carry them with me and then go into the shops and supply my own darn plastic straw. It's stupid. It's just, it's idiocy. And then on top of that, a court decision made it so it overrode that ban anyway, deemed that it was illegal, but still in British Columbia, because it's still in limbo. Mm-hmm. Everybody who's complied is still complying.
Yeah. Well, that's just another prime example too, right? And it's the bottom line is if you're petty enough to ban plastic straws, what wouldn't you ban, right? Like really, like seriously, right? It's crazy.
Yeah.
To invest that amount of legislative willpower and energy and effort, right? And it's about changing people's behavior. Join our collective or else. Really, that's really
or
what
else.
It comes to. Yeah.
One thing that drives me nuts, every single time I go to the store, and you have to do the self-checkout, and at the self-checkout,
why aren't you paid for that, Clyde?
I know, right? I should get a discount.
My very first job, my very first job, I was a grocery stock boy. I used to pack people's groceries. That's what I did for a living. The business worked wonderfully. I helped them out to the cart or to their car with their groceries. The ladies, I'd collect the carts in the parking lot. I'd put the food on the shelves and face them all, make them look nice. It was a great first job. But when you are doing that, when you're self-checking out, you are literally doing the job that I was paid for to do when I was younger. And you know, these folks out there, they we're all for unions and we're against, you know, corporate welfare and all this. And it's like every time you go to that store and you do that, you should be paid. You are providing a service for that business, period. And you should be compensated for that, in my opinion.
The thing that gets me the most is when you have all these like automated stations that you can go to, and they're like, "Oh no, sorry, these ones are closed." It's like, why? Why are they closed? What are you doing? No, but what I was getting to is the idea that you go to the self-checkout here in British Columbia in the bagging section. They haven't redesigned the thing so that it doesn't have a bagging section, because you still have to weigh your stuff. And then at the end, it asks you still how many bags you'd like. yeah, but they're banned.
This up. Yeah. What is going on? Yeah.
Brad, by the way, if you hear me, she looks like she's in here, but her video is not working. Get your video working. I'll pull you back in the.
That's too bad, because I wanted to ask her some questions. Man, that girl, she faces a lot of heat on Twitter. I don't know if you follow her. but
I
there
do.
there are people who just come after her relentlessly, from all sides of the political
She's
spectrum.
got
And
some cojones though. Holy cow. And just like the
yeah,
way she doesn't take any shit. That's the best part.
yeah,
I
that's
hope
why I
she
told
can
her. I
get
said
back
one
in.
day you're going to be famous, because she's actually pretty sharp on a lot of things, and she's good in a debate. You come at her, she's going to come right back at you, you know. And a lot of you see a lot of these influencers nowadays. They just want to look pretty and get followers and stuff, but no, she's actually walking the walk in many cases. So I wanted to let her have a chance to talk about that, because I've seen some of the stuff on her feed. I'm just like, holy crap, these people are insane, right? Coming after her, like, what did she's harmless, more or less,
Twitter's
you
one
know.
of those places. It's crazy. Like I mean, I've even seen it in my chat tonight. People come at me and whatever. Come at me, bro. I'm a mechanic. You know, I went through an apprenticeship as a mechanic. I could survive you. You know what I mean? I can
Wow.
survive anything you throw at me.
Is
But
apprentice mechanics that rough? What do you got to do?
oh, when I was apprenticing, holy crap!
Yeah,
Just like just the treatment that you get from the older guys,
the
and this
journeyman.
was like, yeah, the journeyman. So it was like you know, I'm trying not to rag on boomers too much, but
Yeah.
like a lot of the boomers, they got grandfathered in as journeyman mechanics,
Mm-hmm.
and Brat's back. All right, your camera's
Okay.
working
There
now.
we go. Awesome.
Sorry about that. It's my first time going live. I've never done this before. I don't know what happened.
No, it's all good. It's all good. We were actually just getting into talking about how much crap you take on Twitter. And this is the thing. So like, yeah, I get flack, and I was just mentioning like in the chat, you know, I see you when you're saying these things. I know I got a tough skin. I can deal with it, but like I don't get nearly the crap that you get. And I was just saying, like, you've got cojones. Like you're not just taking it. You're dishing it out to a lot of people online, and you're speaking truth to power. I love it. It's amazing. This is why I wanted to have you on the show in the first place.
I'm the brat. Yeah, thank
That's why
you.
you're the brat.
Yeah, no, I just I didn't really mean to start like doing this. I just went on to Twitter one day and had a couple of things I wanted to say, and they kind of took off. But as I've been surfing on the internet, I've come across so many like crazy people. It just kind of just happened. So yeah, it's sort of my thing now, I guess.
Well, I saw for a while there they were photoshopping your head onto bodies and stuff, like just like
Yeah,
crazy stuff, you know. And it's just like, you know,
yeah. The threats are
what
pretty tough.
one of the things that I would say to both you is, like, I get people coming at me too, but I'm like, I love it, man. Like, come on, this is a chance for me to stomp all over you. Let's talk about it. I never enter an argument unless I already know I'm going to win, and I think long and hard about the stances I take before I take them, because I'm like, this is going to happen and that's going to happen and whatever, right? But you know, you look at the level of vitriol that's coming up on her feed, and it's just when people attack you like that personally, when people attack you, start making memes and start mocking you for your appearance and things like that, what that really means is they don't have an argument.
Yeah.
They don't like what you're saying. They want to try and discredit you. They want to shut you up, and really they don't have anything that of substance to fight back. So this is all they can do, and this is the same tactic we see at the highest level of government, right? Like, we see it's always with the left. It's they never criticize the policy. They never criticize, you know, the issue, or provide, you know, counter information to, you know, refute the statistics on firearms, or whatever the issue might be, or climate change, or whatever it is. They always say, oh, that person's a racist, right?
Yeah.
That person's horrible. You shouldn't listen to them because that person is horrible. They're an extremist. They're far right. They're this and that, right? So really, when push comes to shove, they don't have an argument, and all they're left with is discrediting. And we see that over and over again in both Canada and the U.S. Political spectrum. That's because, like that girl said, facts don't care about your feelings. They don't have any facts. So what do they got left? They gotta throw stuff at the wall till something sticks.
Well, and I'm also kind of living in the political hotbed of so much going on, especially in British Columbia, but also in most of Canada. There's a lot of stuff happening where I live. So when I speak on stuff, it's because it's affecting me. So I get a little off put when people try to tell me you need to shut up, and it's like, no, I don't. I'm not going to shut up. So, yeah, it's an interesting political discourse. I've learned so much on this app. But yeah, I've noticed that too. As soon as somebody wants to, they want to argue with you, they'll go right to you're a bigot, an ism, every phobe, you name it, the racism, and yeah, they'll find any way to discredit you. So I'm trying to be very careful with my wording so that, I don't have to answer to any of that. Like I don't use I won't say the words, but there's some pretty seriously racist stuff that's being said on that app towards me, towards others, but mostly because people think I'm a Jew. It's the weirdest thing. I'm not, but
What?
I don't care.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I
because
wasn't
have
expecting
big
to hear
curly
that.
hair.
Like, oh, okay.
Interesting.
I mean, because like I thought I heard that you were part native, and I thought maybe that's where some of the racism was coming from. But what Jewish? Like that is that relevant to anything? What does that have to do with anything?
Exactly. I know. They just go right to, well, it's because you're a Jew. I'm like, what? We're not even talking about Israel. What the fuck? What part of my
Yeah.
Weird.
Well,
Weird.
one thing that I think that even the racist discourse, I think it's important that it's not censored. I think it's important that it comes out there, that people see the ugliness of the that people the thoughts that people have when they face no consequences, right? And it's pretty easy to derail any racist argument, right? Like if you can't counter someone who's just being flat out racist, you probably need to rethink your position on whatever the issue is. Like that is the easiest thing to handle, right? Because it's just pure ignorance and stupidity. So
I sometimes feel like too, like sometimes people misconstrue some of my posts for being flat out racist, where that's what I absolutely try to avoid. Because I just like to post the facts, and sometimes that can be a little upsetting. But the gang crime is what I post a lot about. And that's because what you were just talking about before I got cut off with the gun crimes and everything, 46% of all homicides right now in British Columbia are gang related. So, and that's for shooting crimes. So those are obviously not legal guns, right? So it's kind of linked.
well,
Yeah.
murder's illegal, so whether the gun's involved or not is kind of secondary.
Yes. Yeah. But no, like the
Not
guns.
supposed to kill people.
But if they're using guns, these are gun related crimes. Like obviously criminals are not using legal guns.
No, I know.
So I want to
Same
point
as-
this one out. So this was something that happened recently, and I'm obviously purposely obscuring who on Twitter said this, but I'll pop this up, and here it is. It's this person says, because I had an interview with Lauren Southern. It's about the India question, tons of immigration coming over from India. And this person says, LOL, we're always ahead of these people and hated for it. In a year, this clown, referring to me, will be calling for mass deportations while he swears he isn't a racist. Now, I did have to do this. I felt that this was important. And I put this one out there. I said, here's my line in the sand. Like, I had to have the picture of the line being drawn in the sand. I said, nobody has come around to your position. And this is, targeted at people who are actually spewing like racist stuff about these individuals. And I said, nobody's coming around to your position. You're stealing other people's valid criticisms and then adding the racial element. The line in the sand is where you call for a white-only Canada and state that Indian people cannot integrate within Canada because of a racial genetic disposition. Like this is it should be a pretty self-evident thing. Like, no, there's Canada's been largely multicultural for a lot of decades. It's not a new concept. There's been people from all walks of the planet. And even when it was a lot of immigrants coming over that were, you know, ethnically white, they at the time they were met with adversity. Even, you know, the Italians when they came over, and the Polish when they came over, and it's hard for people to integrate at first, and then eventually it happens, and then they just become Canadians as we know them, colloquially. You know, we're all just Canadians, and it happens in that way. Now, right now, there's this massive mass immigration thing that the government's been pushing, and that's been having a lot of negative effects. And to be against that is not the same as being against people immigrating to Canada from other places. And this is the difference. And I think that there's this massive like obfuscation intentionally. And I think from the people that are advocating from a position of not liking other races, and also from a position of people that are arguing for the current model, like people in the Liberal Party, for example, they're trying to obscure what the real arguments are of, like, hold on, mass immigration is a really bad concept, we shouldn't be doing this, and they're obscuring it with the people that are calling for all brown people to be, you know, excommunicated from the country. They're not the same arguments, and we really need to make sure that people understand that they're not the same arguments.
Well, and you could be speaking about something relevant like the housing crisis, you know, hospitals being overrun, and schools stacking portables 3 high. You could be speaking about actual relevant issues that affect you in your community, and right away it's, oh, you're xenophobic, you're racist, anti-immigrant, da 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 da. When it's like, well, but the fact is we didn't keep up building enough housing and the infrastructure to accommodate everybody. And that's not fair on anybody. That's not fair on us. It's not fair on the people that are coming here trying to get into the market and rent and everything, right? So, yeah, it's not racist to say immigration is out of control. And you know what? It's funny too. It's the immigration part is actually pretty in check. It's maybe doubled. It's not extreme. It's the temporary system, the foreign workers and the temporary foreign students, because they don't see themselves as temps.
So you're saying normal immigration with the checks in place, like criminal record checks, making sure that you have certain merits or whatever. It's people backdooring the immigration system.
Yeah, like, so the initial immigration system, the people that are coming through that system are people that integrate right into society. We would never really know any better. They probably have really great English already. Maybe they've even got a good education or a career. But yeah, the people coming through the temporary system, especially the ones that are coming in on fake pretenses, pretending to be a student and never attending class, that has like gone up exponentially. It went from a couple 100,000, and now we're looking at probably over 1 million per year of the temporary status. But the thing is that they're not remaining on a temporary status. You know, usually when you come and it's temporary, you're thinking 2 years, you're taking a 2-year course, you finish it, and then maybe you extend it and look for permanent residency. But normally a temporary means you go home after, right? Well, that's not what's happening anymore. People are applying for like refugee status if they're not being able to stay, if they're not able to extend. Because, you know, people normally, if you take a 4-year course or more, then it makes sense to be applying for permanent residency and becoming a citizen and everything. But if you're coming here for 6-month course, which is what's happening, we've got people coming here on the temporary foreign student program in 6-month courses, and then they just don't leave. So we weren't expecting them to stay, basically.
And there's a whole cottage industry surrounding it, and this is the troublesome thing. There's like, you go to these strip malls in Ontario, and I've seen pictures of it, and it's just like, legal consultation outlets everywhere for immigrants, and you have the pick of the litter. It's a whole industry surrounding people coming over on temporary permits for school, and then immediately doing a change of status or whatever they can to get themselves the LMIA visas to tie either a permanent residence or at least a work visa to an employment, which is a whole
Yeah.
other scam industry there.
Yeah, so like if they're a student and they're applying for permanent residency, they kind of have some check marks they have to meet. And they will decide if they're going to keep these people or not. But it sounds like just anybody staying. I mean, we've got people coming here that are supposed to be in class. Up to 20% of these students never step foot in a class, these temporary foreign students that are coming here through this sort of fake system. But they're taking diplomas that are irrelevant, some of them. And then they're shocked why they're not being granted permanent residency. And it's because on the other end, they're being promised permanent residency, a bonus that's going to come with just show up and pretend to go to class and work instead. No big deal. Because they're allowed to work up to 40 hours a week. So it just kind of, it went from being a system where people legitimately came here and went to legitimate classes and got actual educations, and we were like, wow, you are the smartest, the best of the best, we want you to stay, to basically anybody coming here under any pretense and then demanding to stay. And the unfortunate thing about it as well is that through the temporary system, the proper background checks aren't being done. So some of the people that are coming, they didn't get a proper criminal record check, and some of them are criminals. They're coming straight here right out
Some
of
of them,
jail and stuff.
apparently
So
tons of them.
can
That's
I
what we're
ask both of you
seeing.
guys a question? So
Yeah,
Yeah.
have either of you gone and looked up the actual demographics on how many people are coming to Canada right now?
a lot.
Yeah.
But you mean the demographics? I think it's like 90% or 80% Indian, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh no,
And
that's
and
not
from
what
a
I'm.
particular
That's not what
region
I'm
as
talking
well.
about. I'm talking about the numbers. So maybe demographics is the wrong word. So the last time I went and looked, I went on the StatsCan website, and the information is hard to find. Basically, the answer to the most important, the simplest questions on StatsCan, there it's always buried, but you can find it, but it takes quite some time.
Oh
But
yeah.
I looked for Q3 2023. We had just under 1 million people come to Canada in 3 months. Okay, there was about
That's in 3 months.
500,000 legal immigrants, and then there was like 300,000 students and about 200,000 temporary foreign workers. Okay, so it was like 900 and something thousand. So the problem that we're having here, and like the whole racial, the cultural arguments, and those are important arguments. You can't ignore them. We have, you know, Jewish schools being shot up. We have people in the streets marching with communists. You know, we are importing cultures that are diabolically opposed and quite literally at war with each other in other countries right now. We're bringing them all and putting them in the same community and acting like that is going to somehow work out well. I don't think it does. Not for many years, right? Like you can't put a Palestinian and an Israeli next door to each other and expect them to get along. Period. Right. So that is an important argument, and it is one that we need to talk about. But
I'm just gonna step out of the
realistically,
room here, but keep going, guys. I'll just
yeah,
be right
sure.
back.
Yeah, if you look at the sheer numbers, like you said, Brad, there's nowhere to live. Canada's full. It's literally full. Like everyone says, well, we have all this area, we have all this land, we have this huge land mass. That's not actually true. Most of the prime land it's used for farmland, you know, to feed the population. It's owned by First Nations. A lot of the prime cuts have, you know, untouchable Indigenous treaty rights. You know, or it's a swamp or a barren ground Arctic rock.
Exactly.
Like
It's
you
rock or
can't,
swamp.
yeah,
Hmm.
like so really what we have is like 7 cities, you know, more
Yeah.
or less, and they are overflowing, and now they're trying to dump the overflow into the smaller communities. Those smaller communities are overflowing now. Our premier right now is Ranj Pillai. He's Indian descent, I believe, and he just cut off the temporary foreign worker program up here because it's destroying the community. There's nowhere to live. There's no jobs to employ these people, and it's just as much of a scam for them as it is for us, because they're coming over with this bright idea. Like imagine you're just living poor overseas somewhere, whatever country you're from, and it's like, wow, I can go to Canada, I can get a job, I can live in a free country. It's like this big dream. They come here and they want to succeed and do well for themselves, and then they get here and they find out they're going to get into some temporary foreign worker program that's being abused by corporations like Tim Hortons or Canadian Tire, and paid minimum wage, which is not going to cover rent and food and bills in Canada anymore. So they're coming over here and getting dumped into this economic situation, which is untenable. And then, on top of that, we have an infrastructure. Our education systems are full. Our hospitals are full. With the power grid is literally starting to fail in some places now because it's just too much demand, right?
Yeah.
And then you add this cultural, what do you call it, catalyst on top of it, where people are just not getting along, man. Period, for very valid reasons that have absolutely nothing to do with race, but most importantly, nothing to do with Canada. And we're inviting a problem into our country irresponsibly. And this is one of my key criticisms of Pierre Poilievre. So he talks about the housing situation, and he has a very valid point about the regulations that need to be cut and stuff. That's true. There is a very real roadblock there with the bureaucracy. But he's like, we're gonna start building all these houses. We're gonna get people working, put them to work, get them building homes and stuff. And it's like, you know what, man? That's where I started out, was in the trades. The biggest problem in the trades is getting reliable staff to come, journeymen, apprentices to show up on the job. And, he even if we start today, right now, and say, okay, as of today, we are going to put, make anyone who wants to be apprentice carpenter, plumber, electrician, it's free. The government will just pay for you. You get a job, you go through it, and in 4 years we double the amount of tradespeople to build homes. Well, you need to consider every 3 months we're bringing in 1 million people, and they now have a right to bring in their families, their extended families as well on top of that. And
Caregivers.
there is no possible way that we are going to be able to increase the building capacity to a level that can respond to that kind of demand. So
Right. So our building capacity at this moment is about 230,000 homes nationwide per year, and that's a diminishing returns on that as well, because we have a retiring population that work in this trade, or the several trades that takes to build homes. There's a lot. I mean, you're talking about carpenters on many different skill levels. You have electricians, you have plumbers, you have tin knockers, all these different trades, and we have a lot of them retiring in the next decade or so. So it's a huge diminishing return. If today we can make 230,000 homes at max capacity, tomorrow it'll be 220, and the next year it'll be 210, and so on and so on. Unless we're actually making, and you can't just throw money at the problem. This is the problem with politicians. They're just, we'll just throw a bunch of money at it. We'll make education free for these people. But that doesn't instill work ethic. You mentioned it before. It's so hard to get a reliable staff member to come in and actually work with you. And the jobs are there and they pay great. They're not minimum wage jobs when you're working at a work site. You're making good money, and people are just flaking. Like, how do we survive this? What do we do?
Well, and they also have, for them to meet their targets.
I'm going to interrupt. What we do is we halt the immigration. That is what has to happen. If we want a chance to have anyone, including the immigrants here, we have to halt the immigration. The levels cannot continue. And the thing is, we can always bring in more people later, right? Like, if we can bring in 1 million people in every three months, that is a city the size of Edmonton, roughly, every 3 months. We're not building a new Edmonton every 3 months. That's not possible, right? So this is the thing, and a lot of politicians won't talk about this out of, political fears. And it's very important for people out there watching this. My mother is an immigrant. Okay. So I wouldn't even be alive if it wasn't for immigration. But it's like I said, the cultural, the racial aspects are completely irrelevant. If you go and you look up the numbers, just go to the StatsCan website and look up the numbers yourself. You're going to be like, where are these people going to live? Where are they going to work? And the proof is in the pudding. And Pierre himself, he talks about this. He says, look at GDP per capita. Our GDP per capita has, for the first time in like 50 years, finally separated from the United States. They are getting richer. We are getting poorer. So this entire notion that we need immigrants to come here to sustain the GDP and help with pensions and build the economy, it's not working. The GDP is falling for everyone, for per capita, for the people here, which means we're all getting poorer. There's more people, but we're all getting poorer. So the plan isn't working. Our society's divided, and we're facing serious economic and social repercussions. In my opinion, we don't have a prayer unless it stops.
Well, they also, I just wanted to add in there too, the targets they have to build enough homes. The Liberals, their target is never going to happen. They would have to build a home every single minute of every single day for the next 7 years, 24/7. And that's not how construction works. They don't work overnight, hardly work weekends. We would have to go full tilt. And that's with our current population. So in 7 years, where are we going to be? 50 million? Like, who knows? So,
well,
yeah,
and we're
it's
not
a
lowering the standards either. We're not getting lower standard construction workers, because the
No.
standards are getting higher all the time.
Yes.
The regulations getting tougher and tougher. And like, what was it, the Homes on Homes guy? He had one of his homes condemned because it was unlivable because of current regulations.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing is that the Liberals know that the 90% of the people that they're importing are more than happy to live like they did before, which is 10 people to a room. Like, I'm not okay with that. And this lowers the living standard for myself and everybody in my community. When I can't rent a place because they could rent it to 5, 6 other people for way more money. I mean, where I live, I'm close to a lot of schools. In the Lower Mainland. So it can be very difficult to compete with 5 international students looking at or 6 international students looking at a 2-bedroom. Like if you're a single mom and you got 1 kid and you want a 2-bedroom, they can get more money out of 6 adults than a single mom and a kid, right?
Let's take an alternate tack here. So the argument is that, okay, Canada has all this space. We could house hundreds of millions of people and all that stuff. And it's like, okay, so if the government truly wanted to help the population, why not just give every citizen who doesn't own a home half an acre of land? Let's just say we're going to take this chunk of crown land and we're going to give it to people so that they can build a home, right? Yeah. That's putting your money where your mouth is, right? But they're not doing that. They're building a situation where the demand in the housing situation is so high that this is why, like, our bubble should have popped 5 years ago, but it hasn't, because there's just more and more and more people coming. So people are desperate for a place to live. So until the demand is cut off and the supply can meet that demand, it's going to continue to be artificially inflated. And when it pops, man, it's going to be brutal. It's going to be brutal.
Well, they won't.
Well, here's the stat. Here's the stat right here. Ann Roll putting this out there. On Twitter, we hit 41 million in April. 6 million new Canadians since Trudeau took office. Ontario's population has increased by 2 million people. We're still short healthcare workers and skilled trades. Housing isn't kept up. And here in British Columbia, we're not getting any. We're reducing our healthcare workers because we're still prohibiting them from going to work if they didn't get jabbed. It's unbelievable.
I can't handle that conversation. Like, that's one that just makes me furious, right? The unvaccinated are still being persecuted. I want to say this to everyone out there, especially for all your your followers, the natural state of a human being is unvaccinated. They make this whole argument that, you know, to the notion that unvaccinated were not persecuted like people during World War II and stuff, like that is completely false. It was a purely a medical, a biological decision made to discriminate against people for absolutely no reason. And the underlying motivator for that is that people were resisting control by the collective. That's all it was. These people, we have to get them. They're dirty. They're evil. They're bad. And to the point of we're gonna set our own hospitals and medical system on fire. Like it's just
It was punishment
I
for
know people.
non-compliance. That at the end of
Yeah.
the day, that's all that is.
Correct. And like I just like we could do a whole show on that, Clyde, talking about the vaccine and stuff and
Oh,
the psychological
we're on
things that-
YouTube, so we gotta
Yeah.
kind of be careful and dance
Yeah.
around that one very carefully.
Yeah, if you just if I say any words that are inappropriate, we'll have a safe word. Say blueberry or something like that. I don't.
No, just well, YouTube's very strict about this. It's amazing. They say you're not allowed to basically comment on any of the effects that said medical intervention possibly could have on a person. So
like vaccine side effects,
yeah. So that
Okay.
that sort of
but
thing.
not societal
But
side effects.
yeah, not societal side effect. You can talk about the societal side effects. So like, for example, we're allowed to openly talk about how it's egregious that the government would mandate any sort of vaccination or any sort of medical procedure. That goes against, well, first and foremost, the Nuremberg Code, which we all established after Second World War, and we all signed in on that. And yeah, there's no excuse for the government to come in and say that you have to do this, and if you don't do this medical procedure, then you can't function in society. We're gonna make you an underclass. You're gonna have to anyone who's not the underclass is gonna have to carry around passports. British Columbia, right? We had to carry around passports for a particular amount of time.
David, right? It's a badge that publicly identifies you as one of them. Because if you walk into a restaurant, you have to say, "Are you vaccinated?" Well, no. Everybody there knows, oh, he's one of them, right? It's othering people in a derogatory fashion that stemmed from ideological persecution from the highest level of our government. Period.
And they actually paid restaurants here in British Columbia to comply, like because a lot of like in my town, like most restaurants are like, yeah, we're not playing ball, we're just not doing it. And a lot of the big box kind of restaurants, they got grants from the government to implement this the passport system. And I know a few places in town here that got in trouble. They got in trouble because they were just like, nah, human beings are human beings. I'm gonna let them walk in the door. That's the end of the story. That's it. We don't check citizenship at the door. Why the hell would we check that?
Yeah, good point. Right. Yeah, like that's a pretty big rabbit hole to go down, to say the least. And I am very. Anyone out there who's watching this, and if you are unvaccinated, I really want to say this from the bottom of my heart. I am so proud of you. It was an overwhelmingly difficult. It was an overwhelmingly difficult initiative to resist. They employed every trick they could. Every sort of social leverage that was available to them, they used. And if you made it through that entire process, you are built of very strong stuff. And it was very important that that core group of individuals did what they did, because that's what started to turn this whole situation around here in Canada. That's really what not just here in Canada, but around the world, right? The Freedom Convoy is still having an effect in other nations like France, like the UK. This notion of authoritarian government that went too far, particularly over COVID, really it started in Canada and it's gone around the world and it's still going on. And you know, I just, like I said, it was a very hard thing to resist. Like my family's pretty right wing, but a lot of folks in my family got vaccinated. They had to for one reason or another, and you know, it just broke my heart. And I was fortunate enough to be in a situation where I could financially and economically resist the government no matter what they did, as well as having a loving family and friends that didn't judge me, you know. So it was a pretty easy ride for me, but for some people, it was life changing and life altering. People still haven't gone back to work. They lost their homes. People got divorced over it. You know, like it was just absolutely insane. And no one's wearing masks now. No one's getting boosters now. You know, the people who resisted were right. Period.
Everyone's better
I
off because of the truckers. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I seen what happened on the reserves when they were testing out AstraZeneca. Oh, I can I allowed to say that? AZ, when they were testing out they were testing it out on the reserves. I seen what had happened, and I said to myself, I'm like, I'm not taking that. No way. And that was right at the very beginning, during the rollout. Yeah, no, there was no way I was doing that, especially after all the damage that I seen happen. So, good job,
There
Well, I'm
was
everybody.
surprised that they would try that because, like, of all the people in Canada that would not trust the government, I think it would be the natives.
Right? I was shocked. I couldn't believe it, but it is what it is.
well, it's like I said, they employed every psychological trick in the book, right? They created a real fear that if you didn't do this, you were going to die, right? Like that's like at the very beginning of the pandemic, like when Sophie first got sick, she was one of the first people to bring COVID to Canada. Remember that? But when
Oh, I
like
forgot about that.
that
Yeah, that's right.
in January,
She was a
like
super spreader, right?
I guess so. I don't know. I guess so, right? But you know, like in
We should
that
ask
first
Idris
3 month
Elba.
period, yeah, like me, I oh my god,
I bet it.
um,
Forgot about that.
yeah, one you know, one of my other buddy, he's kind of a more off grid type of guy like myself, and you know, me and him were like, you know what, bro? If this thing is real, people are going to be stampeding to the stores for masks. Like supplies are going to be like, it's going to be crazy, right? Every man for themselves. So at the beginning, we like went to the store. We bought a bunch of masks. We stocked up on ammo, food stuffs, you know, medicine. So we're like, okay, we'll be laughing now, no matter what pandemic hits us now. We were just trying to be cutesy and smart because, like, we're just seeing what's happening in the news reports like holy crap, this thing is crazy, right?
Yeah.
And then it hit Canada, and Trudeau wouldn't shut down the air flights. He wouldn't shut down the border. He was happy to lock us in this prison, but he was completely unwilling to lock the virus out of entering Canada. He wanted it to happen, right? And you know, it was like a nothing burger. And it was just like, okay, somebody got sick, I knew, and they said, well, it was pretty bad. It was, you know, I got a bad cough, and I was really, you know, it was like a horrible flu and a fever and stuff and whatever. But it's like, you know, if it was truly the virus that they, you know, played it out to be in the media, people should have been like dying in the streets. And that just wasn't happening. We're like, okay, something's wrong here. And then it was like, we're shutting down Parliament. We need emergency powers. Absolutely no oversight on spending. And we are all going home for 8 months. And it was just like, okay, this is a tool for power abuse. That's all it is. There's absolutely no justification for this. And then the people who started piping up and say, hey, wait a minute, this is not okay. Then they just ramped it up another level. You do this or you're fired. You lose your job. You do this or we're going to fine you. We're going to arrest you. We're going to ban you from public spaces. You're not allowed on planes anymore. Like, just, this cannot be forgotten, right? Any more than the Chinese influence in our parliament can be let slide right now. Like these are huge societal issues that I would argue once again go back to our the failures in our legal foundations in this country.
was trying to look for the quote and who said it. I don't know who said it, but the quote is, "A government that's allowed to break the law during an emergency will create an emergency to break the law," and that's
What they did.
absolutely true. That's what they do.
Wasn't that Tom Marazza? Maybe.
I don't know. I don't think it was Tom. I think he's quoted somebody who for saying that.
Yeah, I've seen it all over Twitter a million times.
Yeah,
Right,
it's
right. I was just
it's
looking
crazy.
for who said that.
You know, the military was running a psychological experiment. Remember that little news article? Oh yeah, hey guys, we were just running a psyop on you just to see how you would react to, you know, a social experiment during a pandemic. You know,
Yeah,
like,
they did it
what?
actually a few times over the last few years, and they even told us about it.
Yeah.
Did you hear about the one with the wolves in Nova Scotia?
No,
You
I did
told me
not.
about it. Tell him.
This freaks me out. Okay, so this freaks me out because the military did this, the Canadian Armed Forces, without any oversight. Nobody commissioned this. Nobody in Parliament even knew about it. But what they did was and this was reported on by, I think it was the Western Standard. That's where I read it, and it might have been. I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, the Western Standard, I think, and again, I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, I love giving credit when
Was it
when
Derek
people
Fildebrandt,
break.
maybe?
Not a particular individual. It was like a publication.
Tell me
Citizen
about these wolves.
something.
What
Okay,
happened?
so the story was the military, they moved in with this psychological operation. I hate using psyop because it's become like the new like shibboleth for like, you know, okay, the guy that says psyop all the time. Anyway, but so what they did was at first they moved in and they opened up an office or whatever, and they said, oh, you know, we're environmental protection agency, you know, wildlife, whatever. Move into town, and then they started circulating these this information leaflets around saying, oh, you know, there's too many deer in the area, so we're introducing wolves, and it's no big deal, no problem. It's nothing to worry about. We're just doing this, okay? You probably will never hear about it or even see anything of it. So then a few months go by, and then they start putting out signs saying, oh, if you see a wolf, be careful. You know, this is what wolves look like compared to dogs or whatever. And then they started going door to door and telling people there's been wolf sightings in the area, and it's become a little concerning, and you might want to stay inside. You might want to not, at least, you know, after dark, don't go outside. And even daylight hours, maybe just be cautious. Make sure you carry with you a bell and like some spray or whatever. Did nothing to do with anything. They never released wolves. They never released wolves at all. And then they went even a step further, where
And this was where?
in Nova Scotia, I believe it was.
So
And-
the entire premise, the fear they're generating was just an experiment.
An experiment.
Wow. Oh my God. Okay, keep going.
No, they went further. They went further. They went as far as sending operatives into the woods outside of people's homes with speakers to make wolf noises.
What? When was this?
This was during the COVID time.
Are you serious? Wow. How did I not hear about this? This is wild.
Because I don't know, it's getting buried. It's hard to find
Wow.
now.
I was shocked.
I think it was the Ottawa Citizen that reported on this, and Western Standard. I believe it was those two outlets. I'll have to get this information and give it to you guys, because you guys could go all over Twitter and blast it out there. But it was insane. It was insane, this like operation to just terrorize people. It was completely not through any democratic institutions at all. It was completely through the well, what they say is it was through the CAF and them only, and they did it all on their own. And then they're like, oops, sorry, won't do that again.
Well, and they ran propaganda on us before and during the pandemic, and made a point of even telling us about it. They wrote about it. It was also the Ottawa Citizen. You guys would remember that. It was the general
They're a
himself who
fantastic
got up there.
publication, by the way. I just want a big shout out to the Ottawa Citizen for doing a good job.
Well, there's a couple of interesting questions we can ask there. So, first of all, could you imagine if you're a soldier who is ordered to do this, right? You're in the military and you're like, go in someone's backyard and start making wolf noises. Whoa, right? Like that's kind of crazy to me to think that somebody would go do that and not question it or say anything.
Just following orders, man. Just following orders.
Fair enough, and that's what you do as a soldier.
No, it's not fair. I don't agree with that.
It is, right? Because in the military, if you have people who don't follow orders, other people die. That's what happens, right? But in this case,
Against your own population, though, it's just really
correct. That's where
They were all vaccinated. Maybe they were crazy.
Yeah, but the other question we need to ask here is, okay, what would the value be in this experiment, right? Well, I look at that and I see, can we socially engineer people through fear? That's what they were doing there. They want to see if they can make people behave a certain way or do certain things or express feelings online or motivate them politically using fear. And when at the very beginning of this conversation, I spoke about how when I first got involved online with the gun argument, that's there. I still have the video. It's pinned on my page. I specifically referenced that. That was like back in 2019. That the entire agenda here is to politically motivate Canadians using fear over firearms. And a gun is scary. A wolf is scary. Whatever. A virus is scary, right? That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make you feel afraid and then react. And I think it's very important moving forward that Canadians literally question everything that comes out of the government. Every single act, every single statement, every single receipt. What is going on here? Because nobody knows. Like the fact that I didn't even hear about this or I didn't even know it. Like I try to pay attention to what's happening, man, in this country, like every day, and that just really blows my mind. And we can't be afraid anymore. We can't be motivated like that. And controlled like that. And if we let them, they're just going to do whatever. The next big boogeyman will be food fears or water fears or climate fears or whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, we have to look at the situation and be like, is there a wolf in my backyard? Right? Nope. Right. Is there a wolf? You know how you find out if there's a wolf in your backyard? Throw out a steak in there and see if he comes and eats it. You'll find out real quick if there's a predator problem, right? And if you have a predator problem, you get a gun. You don't call the government.
Okay, here it is. Actually, I'm surprised how quickly I found this. Military propaganda exercise that caused panic about wolves on the loose lacked oversight, investigation finds.
Well, if there was oversight, then that would have been okay. Wow.
So this bulletin that was sent out to people about gray wolf reintroduction was faked. It was fake, and it was given to whom may concern on the 3rd of August, 2020. Department of Lands and Forestry, Nova Scotia, all of this stuff. They sent this out and they sent it to people and propagandized them into thinking that there was wolves hanging out near their homes. And yeah, here it is. I'll share it with you. So
That's
you can
cool.
Holy smokes, man. That's wild. That's crazier than the virus.
It's insane. It's insane. Wow. Our government pulled this on us. And like the Canadian Armed Forces, like unilaterally, and this is what they're claiming anyway, is that it wasn't commissioned by anybody. Wow, so that's the claim.
Yeah, maybe they got caught and now they're denying it.
Yeah, plausible deniability, isn't that the term that lawyers love?
Yeah.
Let me get to some of these super chats because there's a whole pile of them that came in since the last time we got to them. Jilly Beans says, "Stop using self checkouts. That's self-evident."
Right on, Jilly. I like her.
Thank you so much. Rick Yem with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much. Says, "This whole thing is hard. It's taking a toll on my health. I just hope conservatives make things less stressful. I hope Hope is all about, or is all I have left. Well, I hope you have more left than just hope. You know, there's a lot more to be hopeful about. Steve's Hyde, member for 11 months, amazing. 11 months is a long time. Says if you're called racist or a climate denier in person, just pull out a piece of paper and yell bingo.
Wow.
That's one way to do it.
Yeah.
The New Age creator with $5 super chat says, great point about guns, immigration, but the liberals think that they know what's best for us. Yeah, they try to project that anyway. Daifeichu with a $10 super chat says, read a post on Nextdoor, or read a post on Nextdoor app about this guy who is new to Canada and asking how he can get government assistance for housing. I told him to leave. We want foreigners that can take care of themselves. Yeah, that's a good reply to somebody who's a newcomer. Yeah, the social safety net thing. I mean, I've always not been very much of a fan of it, but when newcomers who haven't paid into it are immediately, benefiting from it, I think that's a travesty right there. Steve's Hyde, also with a $5 super chat, says, where were my body, my choice people? I was really surprised by that, honestly. Yeah, abortion, my body, my choice, pro-choice people were not the same as people who were advocating for, not having to be forced for medical intervention. Jilly with another $10 super chat. The unjabbed survived the world's biggest psyop.
Wow.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jilly Beans, getting in there a ton tonight. Jilly Beans also with a $2 super chat. Preach it, DJ. Government works for the people.
Wow.
Of course, Penny D jumping in with a $5 super chat. Motivating fear. I believe your guest is right, Clyde. I hope you have had a nice birthday. Yes, I did last week. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Turned 42 now. Yeah, that's right. I'm old. I'm old. It was a happy getting older day. Good thing though. It means the survivability in this world that we live in is still doing pretty good. Still all right.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on right now. Like I could pretty much go down any rabbit hole you want here, but I do want to still talk about the elections in France and UK, because there's some parallels. I got quite a few DMs from this actually on Twitter.
Okay, do you still have time for that? Because we went long tonight.
Oh, really?
And,
okay, well, it's
no.
up to you
If
guys.
you still have time, then I'm keen. I'm actually keen to talk about this.
Okay.
It looks like you have 24-hour sunlight at the moment.
Oh yeah, man.
Up there in the Yukon.
It literally gets dark at like 3 or 4 in the morning, but dark is like, it's not really dark right now. In the winter, it's opposite. It doesn't get light, right? So it's kind of a double-edged
that's
sword.
depressing. I don't know if I can handle that.
Yeah. So I want to read you a message I got here from, I got quite a few DMs from this. Guy says, hey, Yukon, I'm not feeling good about the election outcome in the UK, and now reports that the left will defeat the right in France after everything that's gone horribly wrong in both of those jurisdictions. I'm very concerned. I'm scared because Canada and the Trudeau Liberals have over a year to figure out how to rig the results. We both know how corrupt they are, and they'll stop at nothing to get in their way. I'm scared because it won't be long until they start really persecuting any person who's not useful to them, just like they did to the COVIDs. I think they might even start going after gay folks too if they turn their back. Mao did away with his red guard. He goes on and on about some other things here too, but it's like, at the end of the day, both the electoral outcomes in France and UK, they were a bit of a shocker. Things were definitely leaning the other way there. And I think it's very important that we look at how those elections played out and why they did. And this is back to the beginning. I want to to talk about root causes, right? So we'll start with the UK. Let me see here. So if you look at the national vote split, 33.7 went to Labour, 23.7 went to UK, and Reform UK got 14.3% of the vote. Now, Reform would be sort of comparable to the PPC in Canada. They're more populist, England first, et cetera, et cetera. They're done with the wokeness. They're the, I would say, the true right wing party over there. And you look at the response there.
That's sorry, that's Nigel Ferguson, correct?
Yeah,
I think it's Farage.
Farage.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
Farage.
yeah.
My bad. Ferguson, not Ferguson. Nigel Farage.
Now, this situation specifically is kind of why I've sort of abandoned the party wars now, because it really doesn't matter. You look at the results, people are like, well, that's a really good showing for the Reform UK. They say, okay, we got 14.3% of the vote. They wound up with 5 MPs out of that. 14% of the vote elected 5 politicians. Likewise, there was a new generation of Islamist independent politicians who ran. They also elected 5 seats on 1% of the vote. Okay. And then you look at Labour, they got a huge amount of seats, the most seats. What was the number here? I can't remember what it was. I don't know, 411 or something like that. It's crazy, right? So how did this happen? Well, we have a first past the post system. And what happens is when you start splitting the votes among the population, there's 2 ways to game that system. You can either encourage a vote split in your opponents and in your political opponents, which divides the vote and allows your party to come up the middle with a low percentage and win, which is exactly what happened in the UK and exactly what happened in the last 2 elections here in Canada, both 2019, 2021. Trudeau won with a record low percentage of the vote, lowest in the history of Canada. And the other side, which is the alternative, which is what happened in France, they eliminated the vote split on their side of the political spectrum. So they had MPs drop out of close ridings and races in order to eliminate the choice and overwhelm the so-called right wing in those parties or in those districts. So again, you look at France and the situation there. The new Popular Front, they took 26.3. Ensemble, so these are the leftist parties, 24.7. But the National Rally Alliance, these are the populists, the real, France first, people who are sick of the crap, trying to fix the country. They took home 37.1% of the vote. Right, they were the overwhelming majority party that everybody voted for, yet they only wound up with 142 seats. So it's imperative that that Canadians recognize the danger here, okay? Because it won't take much. The Liberals and the NDP, they're already starting to work together in Parliament. They have for years. They got this little coalition. They're looking at the polls right now and the situation in Canada, and they're like, we're not going to have jobs here in less than a year, right? They want to maintain their power. They want to keep their situation going. And if it's like, well, if we can have 5 guys drop out here and 5 guys drop out there, and that swings the vote in favor, and we take over, that's what the conversations they're having right now. And then on top of that, Pierre is doing fantastic in the polls right now. He's riding higher than he ever has. I saw a poll today that was like 233 seats conservative majority. Like this is crazy numbers. And but really he hasn't been tested yet. The moment things get politically, like if he makes some sort of a blunder or something, things start to get hard for him. You combine that with a coalition on the left trying to sabotage these electoral results. It's imperative that we can't allow the Liberals and the NDPs to be rewarded for what they've done. So, what does this situation all come down to? You know, we have the People's Party in Canada, and you know, you can hate the party or you can love them. It really doesn't matter to me. The bottom line is what caused that party to be created. What caused this National Rally Alliance party to be created in France? You know, what caused the Reform Party to be created in the UK? It's years of systemic betrayal by the mainstream conservative parties, right? That's where this anger comes from. That's where this is like, I can't vote for these people anymore. They're not doing what I want. And you know, it's imperative that we help shape, as influencers, in my opinion, we have to help shape our population to start being as critical of the parties that we support and vote for as we are as Justin Trudeau. It's not okay to let this stuff slide anymore. And no matter how small the issue is, it's got to be Canada first from here on. From here on in, we've been Canada last now for like a decade, and here we are, you know, and we don't want to have energy wasted, you know, in the social sphere, on social media, fighting other people who are trying to help the country. We don't want that happening, but more importantly, we don't want what happened in UK and France happening, where electoral will is wasted as well. We should all be advocating for the right policies to make the right ideas popular in this country, and then that will force all of our political parties out there to cater to those ideas. So it all comes back to folks like you and me and Brad, and honestly, all the people watching this. People don't follow me on Twitter because they think I'm a nice guy or whatever. They follow me because they want to hear the truth. And I regret to inform you this. If you follow me, you follow Bradney, you follow Clyde, you are an influencer. You are somebody who cares about what's happening in this country. You care about the outcome, the future, what's going on, and you're aware of the danger. So don't be afraid to speak. Don't be afraid to stand up. Look at what happened over there. Work to avoid that. And more importantly, I fundamentally feel that despite you raising concerns, Clyde, over opening constitutional reform and the dangers involved, I hear that this problem isn't solvable until we do. And what's going to happen is if we don't do it first, someone like Justin Trudeau will. He will open the Constitution and say, we're going to mandate that Canada recognizes climate change and we need taxes on it to fix it. They're going to put that kind of stuff. I'll send you a link after this. They literally had an article in, it was the Toronto Star. The guy did an interview with Trudeau, and this is literally what he was saying. We need to open up constitutional reform because Alberta and Saskatchewan are resisting the carbon tax and they shouldn't be able to do that and stuff. They are thinking that the government doesn't have enough power in this country. It's crazy, right? So
this is what I worry about.
Well,
And this is the thing. So, like, of
Yeah.
course, the like when the Liberal Party, these authoritarians are at the helm, and then a constitutional convention happens, that's what you get. You get more centralizing of power to you know, the prime minister's office, the executive branch. This is the kind of dictatorial kind of thing that you see in banana republics, and I don't want to see that happen here. I agree with you. Yeah, absolutely. We need constitutional reform, but it's just like, I'm nervous about when it happens and what we'll end up with.
Well, the first thing that you have to think about is it's an enormous hurdle to overcome, right? There's multiple ways to it. The amendment formula has multiple ways to do it, but the lowest threshold requires 7 provinces representing 50% of the population. It requires a referendum, right? So I don't think you're going to get a referendum that passes if people put in authoritarian measures. Look at what's happening right now. You look at the polls. Canada is about as right wing as it's ever been now in decades. No, it's to be fair, I would say the Canadian version of right wing is pretty centrist. It's not really right wing,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
when you have someone as popular as Pierre on his way storming to victory, like when would be a better time, right? You
No, I
know,
agree.
after,
Yeah, I
well,
absolutely agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. And
and
and I would even actually add into it the, almost a redundancy in the need for a PPC. So if everything's swinging right, do we need the People's Party? And was the People's Party even? Uh,
no,
I mean, this
I
is
asked
this
Bernier
is an
himself.
argument. I'm not
No,
saying yes or no to that. I'm throwing the idea out there.
I asked Bernier if he would open the Constitution directly in a Twitter space. His response was Canada has a great Constitution. And I would say we don't have property rights, and right there, that means we don't have a good constitution. Period. That
Yeah, I'd agree with
it,
you there.
it, that,
Yeah.
that is a very simple thing that we can get all sides to rally behind. That would benefit everyone permanently. And I, 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 as far as redundancy with the PPC is concerned, you know, I don't really look at it as redundant or whatever. The bottom line is this: if you are the political majority voting bloc in the country, mathematically there is room for multiple parties like the Greens, the NDP, and the Liberals. But when you are the minority, it's about 60% left wing versus 40% conservative. Um, there is no room for error, and even the small percentage leads to the results that happened into France and UK. So the fix is we got to get the conservative politicians to reach out to the people who are feeling alienated at the PPC. Listen to why they're concerned. Just like what happened to me here in the Yukon with um, Jonas Smith. You know, how does a voter like me, someone who's voted conservative all their life, how do I just like forget that? You know what I mean? I will say this: I do know that Pierre reached out to Jonas after the fact personally, which I really do appreciate that. Uh, you know, absolutely. And Jonas was just like he put 10 years into the party and was totally betrayed, so he was done. You know, but I think that you know the most important thing that we all need to do right now is stop listening to what our politicians say and start watching what they do. It's talk the talk now. Do it. Do it. I don't want to hear about this. I want you to do this. And that
Yeah.
is truly the indicator of what goes on. And I hope that we can see more unity on the right wing. And I hope that people start advocating for permanent long-term fixes rather than temporary fixes, and we just go on this back and forth cycle over and over again.
Well, that's always been like the issue with especially libertarians, for example. It's like herding cats. You try to find unity with a bunch of individualists, like people who don't believe in a collective. They believe in the idea of individual people
Live and
having
let
their
live.
own. Yeah, so it's hard. It's hard. It's easy to rally, collectivists that believe that you're an automaton and you should be a part of this like collective. It's easy to get like left-wing political parties energized in that sort of thing. Right now there's no energy towards left-wing ideology at this point. I mean, there is some with like Marxists and in academia and all that stuff, but with just like genuine people, like average voters, average middle class people are a little fed up with left wing ideology at this point.
Here's a good question for you. Why do you think libertarianism fails? Why isn't it the overwhelming, popular thing, right? Because it's like on paper, it's kind of good to look at, right? For a long time, I thought I was a libertarian too, but it turns out I'm not.
So it depends on how you define libertarian. This is why I don't call myself a libertarian typically. I'll say like I'm a like a Thomas Paine classical liberal, like put myself in the position of someone who historically believed a certain thing.
I wasn't so much trying to paint you as a libertarian. I was just
No, I
asking.
get that. I get
Yeah,
that.
I'm just saying, why do you think it fails? I honestly think libertarianism fails for the same reason communism does. It's because human beings are flawed. Okay, we have inherent selfish, entitled motivations in certain portions of the population. So when you have a libertarian minded person, they're like, okay, well, I can live and let live. I really don't understand your lifestyle. I don't particularly like it, but as long as it doesn't harm me, you do you, you go do you, and I'll go do me, and we'll all get along. The problem is the other side, they are incapable of that thought. They see you doing or succeeding or living a certain way that they don't like, and they seek to control. And it's an inherent, you know, genetic or biological motivation that they seek to hey, I don't like that, ban it. Hey, you need to do this and you need to do that, or we're going to do this. And that's why libertarianism fails. You look at the Marxist utopia, it all sounds, oh, everybody's happy, everybody's equal, nobody has to work, and we're all sharing things. That doesn't work because somebody wants power, right? There's an inherent personal motivation. At some point, somebody seeks to control. And I think there's a very close parallel there between libertarianism and communism, not not from an ideological or political standpoint, but for the reason that it fails.
So an outcome standpoint. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. Now, I would say that so the idea of classical libertarianism or classical liberalism has been a very successful experiment in the Western world is largely successful because of this, the idea of self governance and you manifest your own destiny. This is what led to the largest economic boom in history. But it's a double-edged sword, right? So what it does is it creates all of this wealth. It creates all of this, not the ideology or like a political party or whatever, but the actual implementation of it. So like the idea of a liberal, democracy, a liberal republic, this kind of thing, a constitutional republic. It's led to so much prosperity that a lot of people immediately, when they get power in, say they get market share in an economy, the first thing that they want to do is they want to run to the government and guarantee that they can continue that market share. And what are they doing? They're doing something completely illiberal. They're saying, hey, let's fix the economy now. It was good when it was free because I was able to get up and make my market share. But now that I've got my market share, let's secure that and let's make a cartel. And then you have this drive for people to push towards power in order to keep their grasp on it. It's a difficult thing to continue liberty. It's a very
It
difficult
requires
thing.
work. You have to
A massive
be
amount of work.
responsible, right? You have to put effort. You can't just watch Netflix and have everything magically work out. But
Well, because there's always going to be actors in this situation that are going to want to take the reins of power that are always there to be taken. And to fight against that is a continuous battle. And like right now,
Correct.
we're losing it. We're losing that battle. And we need to really push harder to push. The only do you think Pierre Poilievre is going to come into government and he's going to relinquish power of the government? I hope, but I doubt it. And that's really the hope for someone of a classical liberal or a libertarian sensibility, is that as soon as you get into power, you relinquish power, the authority of the federal government. You shrink the size of the government. Historically,
Yeah.
it's only ever happened a handful of times. I don't know if it's going to happen after the next electoral cycle in Canada.
well, it will if we make it popular for them to do so, right?
I hope
That's
so.
really that's really all it comes down to, is that we have to make the right ideas popular. Freedom is fun. Free speech is fun. These ideas are more popular than control and regulation and oppression. So really the main, gorilla in the room right now is the economic situation, and the results of socialism are in. Right, this is what happens, and it's important that we help the people that are experiencing difficulty right now recognize how this problem was created, right? And I really I really have high hopes for the next generation because they are learning a hard lesson right now. You vote woke, you go broke. It's just that simple. Like there is no middle ground on any issue. We cannot give them 1 inch. You let them establish a precedent. They use it to create legal lawfare for 15 years. Enough is enough. We got to put an end to it, and it requires that it
Afuera.
starts. Yeah, exactly. It's it requires us to put our foot down and be disagreeable at the very least and say, nope, I'm not a bad person. I would like you to leave me alone. And that's really the most way, the easiest way to simplify it for people. But the other side of it is responsibility. You have to consider, like, ask yourself, did you accept CERB, right? If you're a business owner, did you accept SEBA, right? Did you accept other rebates and refunds and things from the government? All of that stuff just contributed to the deficit. All of it. The real fix that we should be asking for is tax cuts so that they take less of our money, and then we can be free to use it as we need or see fit. So when the government says, here's a treat, say no, because your grandchildren pay for it. That's really what happens.
I agree with that 100%. Brat, do you have anything to add to that?
Nope. There's lots of
Fair enough.
in there.
Yeah, you summed it up. You summed it up.
Everything I was thinking.
We're at just about the 3.5 hour mark for this live.
Oh my
stream.
gosh! Wow.
This might be a record for me. I gotta get you guys
so
back
bad.
on. I gotta get you guys back on to talk about more stuff. Brat, I definitely want to get you on about some of the stuff, some of the attacks you've been under. I got similar attacks.
Give her a
We're gonna-
one-on-one. I was a mic hog.
Yeah, I think that's what we're gonna have to do. So that's definitely gonna be coming up. Everybody in the chat, I want to thank everybody for hanging out for so long. Holy cow! Some of you guys are in the East Coast and you guys are still hanging on. I can't believe it. A couple of super chats here. Steve's Hyde with a $5 super chat says, "I'll say it again. We're not the UK yet. But the real people in charge want us to be. Stay strong, everyone. I love you all." And of course, Jilly Beans throwing another one in there last minute for $2. Says, "Liberty equals personal responsibility, which we lack." And, well, that's... With great power comes great responsibility. Wasn't that like some superhero? I don't remember.
That was Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, I think it was.
I got 3
Yeah,
kids.
Uncle Ben, thank you so much. I really appreciate it for the wise words. And of course, Yukon Strong, thank you for joining me. Bratney, thank you so much for joining me. And where can people find you guys? Obviously on Twitter. What are your handles? And then where else can people find you?
Mine's just Yukon Strong, and I used to have a YouTube channel, but I closed it due to the censorship.
I don't use social media other than Twitter.
Okay, and what's your handle? Where can people find you?
Brat_world.
All right, perfect. All right, you guys hang on because I'll chat with you after we end the stream. But I want to thank everybody for coming out to the stream, hanging out for so long. Amazing. We had such a great showing tonight. Talked about a lot of things about like economics and politics and culture and all these fantastic things that get people heated up and angry at each other, but we managed to keep it kind of sane. And really appreciate the company, great people. So thanks all for joining in on this stream, And of course, we'll see you on Monday morning. Got a brand new episode talking with Dr. Walter Block if you want to understand a little bit more about free market economics, the Austrian theory and why it separates from other things. Tune into that on Monday morning. That's going to be out there for you guys. And then the other usual, I work too much, podcasts all over the place. We'll see you in the next one. Everybody keep on